Hello, everyone. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another brand new spoiler review here of the Book of Boba Fett, the finale. We have achieved the finale. We're going to talk about it all over the next hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. We shall see. But thank you so much for joining us here on the
Geek Buddies.
Hey!
Were you just? I just want to be really clear because we were talking right before we started recording.
Yes.
Did you come in hot like the Swedish chef?
That's what I felt like.
Is
yes,
that what
Swedish,
you were doing?
in my head.
Because we were talking about the Swedish chef right before we went on, and you came in like Julian Child. You literally went, "Hello."
Yes, absolutely.
Bon appetit.
Spin mover. Anyway, we're going to talk about so many things here. Break down this entire finale of the Book of Boba Fett. Give our overall thoughts on season 1. I think at the tail end of this review for sure. But this is a spoiler review of the Book of Boba Fett. A lot of controversy, a lot of feelings, a lot of battles going on social media. Blame being thrown everywhere, praise being thrown everywhere. So we're going to break this all down. But first, let's introduce ourselves as we go around the horn here. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies. Mike.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies and Swedish chef aficionado.
Shannon McClung.
This is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you may have seen me on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Silicon Valley, and the Goldbergs. I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling fractured tonight.
Whoa, hello. And joining us as she has for every one of these reviews, and we're very, very blessed to have her on the show. She's the co-host of Force Toast Pod, the co-host of The Jedi Way. She is number one in our hearts, the great Laura Kelly. How are you, Laura?
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
How are you feeling, Laura? How are things? As we're walking into the finale here to have this discussion, was there trepidation on your side today? Was there concern? Was there worry? Or are you excited to talk about this finale because you enjoyed it? Shall we start with you? Overall thoughts?
Sure. I mean, overall thoughts, yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. And I think overall, like, this show hit more for me than I think than it did for some people who would get, I've said this before, but like I kind of came into this with not a lot of expectations. I really didn't come into it with any like Boba baggage of like who he was in the Clone Wars and who he was in Legends and the comics. And I kind of don't have a lot of that context. I think I was in a better position than a lot of people because I ended up enjoying this, I think, a lot more, the show overall and this episode than most people. But okay. I don't know.
All right. Fair enough. Michael Vogel, we usually start with you, but we'll go with you second here. Overall thoughts on this finale for the Book of Boba Fett, this almost hour-long finale.
It's not the best of Star Wars. It's not the worst of Star Wars.
Oh wow!
I think there you go. It was the best of Mos Espa. It was the worst of Mos Espa. No, it was. Look, I think kind of like what my reaction, especially like kind of in looking at Twitter and social media over the past couple of days, is like, you know, Star Wars fans have a tendency to lean towards hyperbole. And it's either Star Wars has been ruined or this is the best Star Wars ever. And I don't think this finale was either of those things. I don't think this finale ruined Star Wars. I don't think that I came away distraught and dejected about the direction that Disney and Lucasfilm are taking things. But after episodes 5 and 6, I also think it didn't hit all the things that it possibly wanted to hit. And I think some of the moments that it was hoping were going to be big, holy shit, what a finale moments, fell a little bit flat for different reasons. So I think we'll get into the specifics, but I didn't come away like, I didn't come in raring to like fight about how much I hated the Book of Boba Fett, but I also am not going to sit here and say that I thought that I was 100% satisfied. I'm kind of like, let's, there's good and there's bad and there's ugly. Let's talk about all three.
Sounds good. Were you betrayed, bewildered? No, neither one of those. Okay, fair enough.
I'm always betrayed and bothered and bewildered.
Shannon McClung, thoughts overall on this finale? You know, we had those 2 episodes of essentially Mandalorian 2.5. And then we came back to do this finale. How did you feel after this finale was over? And I imagine you watched it more than once. So what are your thoughts now as you kind of think about this finale and how it left you feeling?
You know, like what Vogel said with the finale, there's actually a lot of fun stuff in the finale. There's also a lot of kind of, to me, wonky creative choices, not just in this episode, but throughout the season. I mean, now that we've gotten to the end, that you kind of look at everything in the rearview mirror, some creative decisions were made that, for me, were truly mind-boggling. It's like, why did you do this? You know, with the credits, how they always show the concept art. Based off that concept art, purely off the concept art, I'm like, there's an amazing show. I don't think we got that show. However, there was still plenty of stuff that I did like. I mean, like, I was smiling from ear to ear in certain moments during this last episode. And again, there were other things that I was just befuddled by. So at the end of the day, you know, Star Wars is not going to stop. There were certainly movies in the past that I didn't necessarily connect with, but my love for the property was not diminished at all, despite the fact that the Book of Boba Fett did not check all the boxes for me. If there's a season 2, I'll be there watching.
Yeah, you know, I would say the first 4 episodes, I was very much like, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. I'd seen the criticism. I'd seen people saying, oh, they're emasculating Boba, or he's not the badass killer that I know him to be. All this kind of stuff from, you know, the 5 minutes he's been on screen. And I totally get that the people were feeling this way because they've created, they've created storylines, they've created narratives, also from the legend stuff and some of the comic book stuff, seeing Boba and some of the ruthlessness of Boba. I was saying to myself, all right, let's see if the turn is coming. And you guys remember other reviews I've been saying, like, oh, something's going to trigger. We never really got that trigger. And by the end of the finale, I would say I was disappointed overall because I felt the setups to the crowd pleasing moments didn't 100% work. Although, is there stuff that I did enjoy? Yes, seeing Boba and Mandalorian back to back like an old school shootout, that was badass. Something out of the Wild Bunch with Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, that was great. But him riding the Rancor, that fell flat for me because the setup to it and the physics-defying time that they took to get that Rancor from the palace to that area of the town drove me a little bit insane. And also the Mod Squad wearing brightly colored clothes, riding brightly colored bikes into an alley on a desert planet with snipers on the roofs made little to no military tactical sense. So to me, overall, there were just things that I didn't 100% like. But at the end of the day, I don't blame this on Tamora Morrison. I certainly don't blame this on Ming-Na Wen overall. So there's just stuff we need to talk about and we need to explore here. And of course, I think we're going to cover the whole gamut in terms of feelings and opinions and points of views on everything going on here in this episode of Star Wars. And for you all who are watching or listening to us, we encourage you madly to join in on the conversation in the chat. And also, if you want to have your question or comment or thought said out loud here as we're doing the show, send it in through the Streamlabs and Super Chat. Streamlabs address is already pinned in the chat. I'm going to put it there on the graphic in a little bit. And it's in the description of this video. So send in your support for everything. And we've got 270 you all watching us right now. So please hit that like button. And we would appreciate that madly. All right, let's start off here. And once again, this is your final spoiler review warning. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it and come back. If you haven't seen it, I don't know where you've been. All right, we open on a sky view. Oh, by the way, the name of the episode is called In the Name of Honor, directed by Robert Rodriguez, written by Jon Favreau. We open on a sky view of Mos Espa after the bomb had went off in the sanctuary. There is just debris, rubble, and dead bodies, or the idea that there's dead bodies all around. No one looks to have survived. Boba and Fennec are in the sanctuary. Boba says they're at war, and even if they win, there won't be much left of the city. The Mandalorian then walks in, and Fennec questions him about who he found to help them. Mando says Cobb Vanth is putting together a garrison, but it's not. It says it's for free, but it's not really for free because they're requesting an end to the spice trade, which Fennec does not like. Yet again, another moment where Fennec is kind of against these ideas, Boba being willing to make these deals and what have you, because she's like worried about how the economy is going to work here without the spice trade. She says they cannot make a lot of money keeping things going without the spice trade. Boba questions Mando about whether Cobb Vanth will come or not. They are doomed if he does not come. It's the first time we've heard Boba essentially giving up the fight in any of these episodes throughout this whole season, and then proposes they hide out in the palace until they do. The Mod Squad, however, proposes staying in the ruins of the sanctuary as they await these reinforcements. And it's supposed to convey, they say that, I love the people of Mos Espa, but we got to show them that we love them. And there's a difference between hiding away in the palace and staying here in the sanctuary. Boba eventually agrees after one of the looks he gets from Fennech Shand. We see the Jawa raiding some speeder. When Cad Bane approaches, he walks into the Pykes Syndicate HQ. The mayor's there with the head of the Pykes. They exchange info about Cad neutralizing the Marshal and that the Pykes killed the Tuskens because they needed to protect their margins. The mayor asks when this will be over. Cad says it depends on how much his two stomachs can handle. The mayor doesn't want any more explosions. The Pike leader apologizes, but says they need extreme measures to destroy the Fett crew hiding out in the sanctuary. Cad Bane says he has an idea on how to draw out Boba Fett. All right, Mike, a lot going on here. We have the sanctuary, what's left of it. We have Boba and the Mandalorian and Fennec Shand there, along with the Mod Squad, wondering what to do. Certainly getting the info about Cobb Vanth is essential. And then later we cut to Cad Bane getting information about how the Pykes killed the Tusken Raiders, which he's going to use later, but kind of putting himself in cahoots in this situation with the Pykes and with the mayor. So talk to me about this whole opening here. Did this bring you back into the world of the Book of Boba Fett effectively after these last two episodes of essentially the Mandalorian 2.5?
Well, all right. So here's what I'm going to say. I'll say that I'm sure people will get mad. Some people will get mad about this in the chat. Some people will agree with me.
Okay.
Overall, my feeling about these first two scenes, and there's two parts of it. There's looking at what they're trying to set up and what they've been setting up with character stuff, and seeing how some of it kind of falls flat in the way that it gets executed. And then also there's directing. I have never been the biggest Robert Rodriguez fan.
That's fair.
I respect what Robert Rodriguez does. I respect the fact that he's the guy that can have a shoestring budget and like really stretch it out and make it look amazing. I respect Spy Kids. I respect Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I respect Sin City. I respect all the things he's done. I don't think he's necessarily the most dynamic director. And so in addition to the past 2 weeks being kind of Mandalorian 2.5, I think with both what Bryce Dallas Howard brought to the table and what Dave Filoni brought to the table visually, you saw scenes that were being executed, not just, hey, here's the dialogue that's being imparted, but you saw scenes that were being executed really, really artfully. Like they're just shot selection, camera angles, what they're focusing on, the way they're focusing on it, the homages, like all of it. Like it was at a different level. So I think for me, these first two opening scenes, both in the remains of Sanctuary and then in Mos Eisley, where the Pykes are, where the Pykes are there with the mayor and everybody else, they're like, my instant feeling was like we jumped into something that felt a little flatter than the past 2 weeks had felt. Like the past 2 weeks were just dynamic, and here we're like, okay. And so I was like, right off the bat, I was like, I'm not feeling the same way that I've been feeling the past 2 weeks. And I don't think it was just because it was Din Djarin and Grogu and everyone else on the screen. It was just, it felt not as dynamic. Then the other thing, this Boba Fett spice moment I thought was really interesting, and I think kind of sums up a little bit some of the challenges that the series have had.
Okay.
We have talked a lot about what Boba Fett wants. When we saw the end of Mandalorian Season 2, he shot Bib Fortuna and said, I'm going to take over Jabba's crime empire. Right. And then we sort of saw through the flashbacks that he learned a lot from the Tuskens, kind of told Fennech Shand that he wanted to leave bounty hunting behind because a tribe was important.
Right.
We discussed when that episode happened that a tribe being important and taking over a criminal empire, not exactly the same thing, but okay. And then we get to this moment where Din shows up and says, hey, Freetown doesn't want no spice. And Boba's like, cool.
Yeah. Gave it up quick. That's true.
Well, then what's the criminal empire getting you? Like, and I think that I like the fact that he kind of came in, took over Jabba's stuff, and then all of a sudden was like, hey, guess what? We're going to stop illegal drug trading. But we never saw like this journey necessarily. So when Fennec was like, what the fuck? I was sitting there kind of like, yeah, like, where did we see this moment where, and it's like, if you were really going to lay this out, it was like, I think the best thing is going to take over crime because I can do it differently. Oh, I've realized that crime is too big. I'm going to say fuck crime on this planet. But we never really saw those moments like where he made those key decisions. So he kind of just says some stuff sometimes. And when he says it, we're like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I think similarly, when you jump over to the Cad Bane scene with the Pykes and the other heads of the criminal groups and the mayor, when when he's like, I know, when he gets the information from the Pykes about the fact that they set things up and it wasn't really those Nikto riders and that they were the ones who did it, which we all kind of assumed.
Yeah.
And he kind of like really takes in that information. I think that the way he uses that later on also kind of falls a little flat. And also his like, I know how to draw Boba out. I've got a plan. And then you get to the next scene and you're like, your plan was just to stand there? Like, there was just like, there was a lot of setup for things where people are saying things, and then the execution just kind of fell flat. Did I like, okay, here's the plan. We're getting the group together. Oh shit, we don't have the people in Freetown. What's going to happen? Oh, Cad Bane is with the... Like, the setup of everything worked, and I kind of will always kind of fall back on this with the Book of Boba. I think with all the episodes, even the episodes we didn't love, what they were setting up, big picture was good. Yeah. Execution wise, I feel like there's little details, little things we needed in there that we didn't quite get.
Okay. All right. Laura, what's your position here on these two opening scenes as we go back into Mos Espa, as we kind of pick up after Sanctuary has had the explosion, and as we see Cad Bane be a more active member and part of this finale? What were your thoughts here as you were watching these opening two scenes?
Well, I'm certainly surprised that we didn't spend a little bit more time kind of, I don't know if mourning is the right word, because like, why would you spend time on that? But like, we just didn't really get a ton that I would have liked to have gotten out of Garsa's Sanctuary. It was such a cool place. It was definitely the most dynamic of all the scenes that we got besides the Mandalorian stuff. But like, I was just kind of disappointed that that's where we left off with that. Vogel talked a lot about, cramming, or like, things falling flat. And I think that is definitely true in some ways, but not for a lack of trying. They definitely crammed a lot into this 160-minute episode, and they set up all of these things over the course of these 6 episodes to then wrap it all up in 60 minutes. Instead of going with the strategy of doing like a 2-part finale, they just tried to shove it all into this. And in, instead of setting up this big knockdown, drag out battle, we have some Pykes, and we have Bane, and we have 2 droids. And that, in terms of expectations, I think that for me also is where it fell flat. But at least in terms of these 2 opening scenes in particular, I do like that Fennech Shand is sort of being the pragmatic one here, where she's like, they want to run drugs here. Jabba ran drugs here. We can like make money off of this because it's probably going to happen anyway. So we might as well take advantage of it. And he's just like, no, which is fine. She is trying to be the pragmatic one here in the room. And I'll circle back to this probably at some point, but I just wish that overall Fennech Shand had more to do in this show. It was a lot of, 1 episode of parkouring on rooftops and then giving mission briefings, and that's about it. That's all she really didn't have a whole lot more beyond that, which was a little disappointing. But
I think, it's fair criticism.
Yeah. But yeah, Bane showing up and comments that he didn't realize the Pike Syndicate was so ruthless, and the boss is just like, yeah, no, we're not. We're just being pragmatic. We don't want to pay taxes twice. They really are trying to kind of pull back all of those different threads that they laid down throughout the course of this episode, and it just maybe had been a little bit too much to try and cram into one.
I also, just on that note, just really quickly, just to pop in here, it did, and this is like a Clone Wars nerd thing. The Pykes are ruthless. Like, repeatedly, if you watch the animated series, you're like, oh shit, don't fuck with the Pykes. So it did kind of make me laugh where Cad Bane's like, I didn't know the Pykes were ruthless. And I was like, bitch, I've seen you in the cartoon. You know they're ruthless. And like, not that it matters, and I know that when you get to live action, you sort of, some things get shifted around and they're trying to establish a lot for a new audience. But that was one where I was like, there's no reason that Cad Bane couldn't have been like, yeah, y'all are motherfuckers.
Yeah. Laurie, bring up an excellent point, and we'll swing back certainly on how Fennech Shand was used or really not used throughout this entire series. And, we'll address that certainly as we go along. Shannon, thoughts on the first 2 scenes here? Did you go, okay, I get it. We're switching to Mos Espa. There's going to have a different vibe, going to have a different point of view. We got to get back to the main story here. Now that we had some fun with the Mandalorian, we got to focus on the task at hand here. Did you sense from the first 2 scenes, like, oh man, are they going to be able to get this done in time? This doesn't feel like they're necessarily leading to this final battle. What did you think as you were watching these first 2 scenes?
I was almost positive they weren't going to get it done in time. So where Michael sort of dinged the directing, I mean, this is where I'll ding the writing. I mean, to me, and this will be an unpopular opinion because the material that I'm going to mention was some of the best of the show, and I don't disagree that the quality was amazing, but the Mandalorian-sized detour we took in the middle of the show was a mistake.
Yeah,
because it completely undercuts your protagonist. I mean, the best stuff that we got, especially in the finale, didn't come from Boba Fett. It came from Fennech Shand. It came from the Mandalorian. All these cool, great moments. Boba seems like he's a very inactive protagonist, which is, for me, was very, very boring. I mean, basically, like, I mean, I wrote down an example. Boba says, we should do this. Person X says, no, we should do this. Boba says, okay, let's do that. That's kind of the real estate with the character. And it's like, God, from what you set up in the first 2 episodes, in the first episode, I was like, it was okay. Episode 2 was fantastic. And then from there on in, it was just kind of the law of diminishing returns. Again, I loved Dave Filoni's episode and I loved Bryce Dallas Howard's episode, and those should have been saved, in my opinion, for the Mandalorian season 3. I mean, I think the show would have been served better if the Mandalorian had not been in it at all, because then you could have devoted that time to characters like Black Krssantan, like the Mod Squad. Again, I didn't like their design at all, but I'm like, there's something here, especially when you bring Cobb Vanth and Freetown in. I'm like, there's a great city mouse, country mouse dynamic here that you get a little bit of that, but it feels forced and obligatory and inauthentic. I'm like, if you had taken those 2 episodes and focused on those other characters, this would have been a stronger finale. This would have been a stronger series. To the whole, when Boba says the spice is killing our people, and granted, it's Star Wars, it's family friendly. I'm like, is it? Like, we've never seen that. Like, we get that, okay, spice is drugs. I get it. We've never actually seen the effects on what it has. In my opinion, maybe I missed it. And then getting to just and now to the scenes with Garza Fwip, it was like, what a waste. I mean, that was such a great idea for a character and someone that really could have bonded with Boba Fett and shaped his worldview. Like, you just got rid of her. Like, what was the point of this setting if you're just gonna blow it up? I mean, those losses, you feel those a lot more when you're invested, and they just didn't give us any real estate to get invested. We switch over to the villains, and even though, again, I mean, I agree, the content of the scene was a little like, I'm not so sure. I love the fact that there were no humans in it. I was like, this is the type of thing I love seeing in live action, because this is something you can do in animation all the live long day. With live action, you can do it. It has happened many times, but it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen a lot, I guess. So watching Cad Bane talk with this Pike leader, talk with the mayor who I think could have been such a great character to explore. I mean, I loved just the look and the fact that he's got the translator on. Like, there was so much cool stuff. They had so many things at their disposal that were kind of wasted, and that's where this show kind of leaves me feeling a little hollow, much like a lot of the deaths did, because we didn't get to know the people.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point you bring up, and I think that's overall how I was sensing, like, the underwhelming nature of it, or the disappointing nature of it. Is like, I wanted to get more with these characters. I wanted to get to know them. I want to spend more time with them. I enjoyed the hell out of those 2 Mandalorian episodes. So in a way, I don't know how to feel about it. Yes, perhaps it was incorrect to include them, but then, I mean, we had to bring the Mandalorian back. We had to have that Grogu moment, at least the way they set it up, to have that situation, Peli Moto, the N1, all of that was kind of weaved in here. Now, was it weaved in effectively enough? You can make arguments one way or the other, but in the end, taking away the story elements or the story opportunities of 2 episodes for us to get to know the Mod Squad a little bit more, for us to get to know Fennech Shand, a Fennech Shand-centric episode would have been awesome, or a scene with Garza Fwip where she isn't talking to just Boba or just Fennec or a couple of, like, and her own thing, watching her run thing. We got more of what's her face in the Bad Batch running her area, the Rhea Perlman character, than we got in with Garza Fwip in the Sanctuary. And that shouldn't be happening when you cast someone like Jennifer Beals, because clearly you could have cast anybody in this role. Any competent actress would have delivered what Jennifer Beals delivered, because she didn't have a chance to really sink into the role and have these layered, complex, nuanced exchanges with the other characters on the show. And that's an unfortunate thing. And the same thing with Fennec. I mean, we're going to get to, but I feel like a lot of the female characters were criminally underused throughout this entire series, and that is a bit troublesome when you look at it. As an opening scene for me, these two scenes, I like that I love the rubble. I love the fact that it's the day after, or maybe hours after, and the devastation of it all. That was great. That's a great beginning. Hey, did you enjoy The Mandalorian? This is what's really going on. Come on back here into the real world and what's happening here, and all that was a great beginning. But then, why is Drash giving them any kind of military advice? Why are they listening to her about anything for me? Because she hasn't been built up as this person who is like kind of a leader of the squad, has kind of got together with the squad, took care of the squad, got them in and out of hairy situations. We have no history. So the fact that Boba, who is a trained fighter, and Fennec are listening to her about hiding out in a sanctuary with a lot of open holes and a lot of open areas to attack makes no sense. You can even argue that her decision to say that and them to follow her is the reason why all this shit happens, because they could have hid out in the palace and they'd have been in behind good defenses overall. Now, the stuff with Pykes, and I don't know as deeply as Mike does the Clone Wars and Laura does Clone Wars with all the stuff with the Pykes. So for me, I like that Homie was like sitting back and chilling and doing that. I mean, it just, the characterization was nice. I kind of liked that. And having Cad Bane be a more active antagonist here, I liked that. So how he was going to use the information, you knew he was going to use the information. But now we got the Nikto riders being removed from this. So now you've got a little bit of emotional stakes. So I didn't mind that scene at all for me personally. So just giving you my 2 cents. All right, let's move on to the next. So we've got some Streamlabs Super Chats coming in. After this section, we will read those out as we go along here. All right, an X-Wing approaches, and I'm like losing my effing mind, because I'm like, okay, Luke's coming, and exactly what I said. Luke's coming with Mando. We're going to have Force users. It's going to be awesome. But it's R2-D2, and it is Baby Yoda and R2-D2. R2-D2 flying the X-Wing there. They land in Pelimoto's place, and it's Grogu. R2 asks about the Mandalorian. Pelimoto jokes about not calling Baby Yoda Grogu. Says it's a terrible name. She's essentially the audience, as Molly Damon has pointed out before. He's wearing the chainmail. Such a cute little moment that she pulls down and sees the chainmail. She calls for food for him. He eats some dung worms, tells R2 to keep his dome on. They'll get to the Mandalorian eventually. We go back to other area of Mos Espa. It feels very familiar from the outside to the location we saw at the end of Mandalorian season 1. Not sure if any of you felt that way too. Fennec gives us a lot of exposition about where all the people are stationed. All their people are stationed there with the Mod Squad, Krssantan, everywhere. They're patrolling the streets. Krssantan's in the Trandoshan territory. Fennec says that no one can sneak up on them, and just then, someone sneaks up on them and asks, according to 88, Fett walks out to see Cad Bane. They exchange pleasantries. Cad tells him that he took care of Cobb Vanth. He wants to negotiate with him to let the spice move through Mos Espa. Boba says no. It says he'll only negotiate with the head of the Pykes. Cad reveals that the Pykes killed his Tusken family. Big reveal. Boba wants to take him out, but Fennec stops him by telling him to stop being emotional. Cad makes an age joke and walks away, which is a legitimate age joke. These two have met before in a deleted scene from Clone Wars, which is now canon. The Major Domo comes out, and they have a funny exchange about this. Just then, Drash radios in that something feels off. We cut to them witnessing the people, or the other people there in the town, pulling their guns and shooting the Mod Squad, shooting at Krssantan and overwhelming him. The treaty is over. They're being attacked by the families who vowed to stand down. The Major Domo reveals the Pike Syndicate is operating out of Mos Eisley from the Desert Survey Office. After he's threatened, Fennec takes off to try to get there in time. Krssantan is eventually overwhelmed, as I said, by the Trandoshans. The Mod Squad is pinned down. Fennec saves them. No surprise. And then some weird exchange about manners. All right, Laura, we're going deeper into this. We get this situation here with Pelimoto and R2 and Baby Yoda, Grogu, and then we move on to this treaty that we all knew was going to fall apart and does fall apart, and now it looks bad for all our people here as the five families and their minions essentially are turning on Boba Fett and his crew. What do you think about this section of the show?
Yeah, I definitely think we all saw it coming that those families were not going to remain neutral by any sense of the word. Getting to see the X-Wing pulling up was really exciting. I kind of thought that we were going to be done with like Luke and Ahsoka, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, here again, I am wrong about every prediction I've made about this show. But the fact that it was just Grogu in the cockpit was just so cute. And honestly, like the rest of this episode, for say what about it, completely just sucked, and I would have been just as happy because Grogu showed up, and that's really all I need to be happy. I'm very easy to please when it comes to this era of Star Wars, so I really enjoyed Peli's little comment about, you know, him, that being a terrible name. We got a very little meta moment with her there that I appreciated. I want to mention the if that's not the Quokta calling the Stifling slimy. That's just such a good line. It's such a good line. And it's straight out of Mando season 2 finale, I think. And that's it. It was great then, and it's great now. And yeah, it's just perfect. So I'm glad that they brought that back. Let's see. Cad Bane throwing the Pykes under the bus a little bit by basically telling Boba Fett that, hey, they're actually the ones that killed your family, which I think that was you, Vogel. I think that made that conclusion a couple episodes ago. So good call on that. But yeah, this whole scene with Cad Bane was great because we finally, again, did kind of get a little bit more Fennech Shand, where she's like, this is the Fennech Shand that we sort of know. She's like, you're being emotional. You can't talk. You cannot have this conversation with him right now. We cannot have this battle right now. We need to regroup and readjust and come up with a better plan. And this is the kind of stuff that, yeah, it's not as like action packed, but it's just great character moments for Fennech Shand that shows us who she really is. And I just wish we would have gotten more of that over the course of the show. Speaking of Fennech Shand, later on when she does have this conversation about manners with Drash, was definitely strange. At first I was just like, is this like flirting? I don't think it is. I think she's just like admiring her like badassery, but it just felt like woman to woman, weird. Maybe? Yeah, maybe. It just felt weird. Yeah, okay. She like pulls her mask down a little bit and she's like kind of smiling, and I'm just like, huh, okay. Apparently Boba Fett's not the only one like sort of getting soft as old age. It was my thought that crossed my mind as soon as this happened. I was just like, Fennech Shand is like now going soft now right up until the end. When we circle back with her at the end, I was like, never mind, I was wrong. But, you know, we have this little moment with her and the mods, and then she proceeds to disappear for the rest of the episode.
30 minutes. She is gone for 30 minutes of the episode. I timed it. 30 minutes, Laura.
Yeah, not my favorite thing. Not my favorite part of this.
Takes a long time to get out to Mos Eisley.
I guess.
Apparently. So. Well, not for Peli. I mean, I don't know. Peli must have left early in the morning because she shows up. You know?
That's a good point.
It's weird.
That's a good point. Yeah, well, and let me circle back on you, Laura, one more thing. Were you surprised that we didn't have an exchange between Fennec and Cad, considering we'd seen in the Bad Batch literally weeks ago? We saw their exchange and their back and forth. Why didn't she say something to him? Why didn't she kind of go at him verbally to kind of throw him off, because he was trying to throw Boba off? And the only exchange, and they never have an exchange the rest of the episode.
No.
And Cad Bane supposedly dies here. It just seems odd that you would Cad Bane would reference a deleted scene from Clone Wars that is now canon, but then there is no mention of the Bad Batch interaction between Fennec and Cad. It seemed weird.
It's a missed opportunity. I mean, it would have been another opportunity to get some like action sequences with Fennec, between Fennec and Cad Bane. That would have been really cool to sort of see that rematch of what we got in the Bad Batch. But yeah, I'm not sure. I can't explain it, but it does feel like a missed opportunity for sure.
It feels like Cad should have fought Fennec, and then Boba should have fought the Pykes, in my opinion. Shannon, what did you think about these two scenes here in this section of the show with Boba and Cad Bane, and then with Fennec saving the mod squad from the betrayals here?
So Amy Sedaris is my least favorite person ever to be introduced into the Star Wars universe. I just do not like this character.
What?
I am not a fan of hers. I think all the dialogue, I think that's all there. I think if you could get her off the SNL stage, sketch mode, I think we maybe could have had a fun character, but I just do not like it. Is nails down a chalkboard for me anytime she shows up. It is so hard for me. But I understand some people got weird taste and like her. So So getting to the next day, again, I feel like the Vespas, the flat turning that they do, it's just odd. Like I get that you're trying to differentiate that and the speeder bikes and how the speeder bikes are a better form of transport, but it's just odd for the eyes. Like I'm like, it just doesn't look right. It's very clear that there are wheels under there that they have matted out. So it's a really difficult thing to watch. The standoff in between Boba and Cad, I actually liked that. I was like, I like this exchange, and I feel like Cad Bane's plan was to reveal what actually happened to the Tuskens and to provoke an emotional reaction. Because as we find out later, Cad's better. Like he beat him.
Oh, we got
him. And that's what would have happened in this situation too if Fennech Shand had not been there to kind of calm him down. We get to this ambush scene, and this to me was bad writing. Because when is it Drash? Is that the
girls?
So when Drash calls and says something feels off, something just doesn't feel right, I'm like, cut this shit. Yeah. She immediately gets on the communicator and is like, we're being attacked. Like you don't have time to consider your bad feelings. Like you should do that mid attack. It just thrusts you into the action a lot faster. And I thought it was kind of strange. Now I love a close quarters, hand-to-hand sword fight, what have you. I thought it was kind of strange that all the Aqualash had blasters and all the Trandoshans who were going up a woolly mammoth all have swords. I was like, this seems like poor planning on the crime families of Tatooine's part. But then, we get Deus Ex Fennec coming in and saving the mods. And I agree that exchange between Fennec and Drash, that's something that would have happened in one of the episodes that was taking place during The Mandalorian. We would have gotten a sense of the history of their relationship. And that's why, even though I know a lot of folks didn't like the mods, that's why developing those characters is important, because the payoff, it just falls flat. It's just sort of like, do you guys know each other? I mean, I guess, that really kind of bumped me.
Okay. All right. Someone says, hey, anybody who gets it on with a Jawa deserves a spot in the Star Wars universe. Here we go. Charlie, Shannon, any character willing to get on with a Jawa deserves a spot. So I think you're wrong here, Peli. I think you're wrong.
Shannon's just jealous. Peli Motto's clearly into the shorter guys, and she went over him to get a Jawa. That's why he's mad.
Oh, yikes. There's the shot.
Oh my gosh. Boy. We're doing this right now.
No. There's a lot to cover. No. Mike, thoughts on these scenes? Do you agree with Shannon some of the underwriting here?
I do.
Are you in Laura's camp? Go ahead. Yeah.
I agree with Shannon on the underwriting. I particularly agree with Shannon, and I think this whole setup of where the mods are and Black Krssantan is, and where you're the Gamorrean guards who you just left out because apparently you don't like bacon. But let's not R.I.P. to the Gamorrean guards.
Justice for the Gamorrean guards.
I know their episode was also while we were watching The Mandalorian.
Wilbur and Porky over there, what happened to them? But I do think where Shannon is correct is that as much as we all love episode 5 and 6, had you moved those out and just not had Din Djarin and Grogu involved in this finale, and had you spent those episodes establishing that, is it Drash?
Yeah, Drash.
Yeah.
Establishing that Drash had a chip on her shoulder and thought she knew everything about Mos Espa. Establishing a little bit more of the Gamorrean guards. Having Boba and Black Krssantan talking a little bit about their past, or what is, there are things you could have done with these characters so that when this whole double cross happened, it felt more like a thing. So I do think that these characters were underserved. And when you talk about that Fennec scene with the manners, look, I'm literally doing this right now. I spent all day doing this on a script, much younger show than Boba Fett. But when you have a script where you're filling in plot, you try and find moments to slip in a character moment. Oh, well, I need to establish that these two characters feel this way for each other, or these two characters were mad at each other, and this is the moment where they kind of see eye to eye. And so this Drash Fennec moment was 1,000% that, which was clearly a resolution to some other scene that never made it, that is on the cutting room floor somewhere.
That's what felt like to me too, Mike.
So like there was a scene somewhere where Drash was like, well, now that we're helping you out, you have to do this for us. And Fennec was like, no, we're your bosses. And she was like, nobody's my boss. And she was like, you're rude. And then we get this scene, and had you had that scene, you would have gone, oh, okay, now they see each other right. Like there would have been something like that, and we just never saw it. As far as like the Cad Bane of it all, here's the Cad Bane Boba thing is really interesting to me. I have seen the deleted scene that is now canon, that we are clearly talking around in these Cad Bane Boba moments, but it's a deleted scene that you can see on YouTube that never made it into TV. And so I think that there's a lot that's built up around Boba and Cad that if you don't have the context, it doesn't land as well. And I also think that the Cad Bane Boba scene could have been shot more interestingly, first of all, but more importantly, was a lot of show don't tell. Cad drops the bomb about the Tuskens, and it wasn't the Nikto Riders, and it was the Pykes. And Boba, in a mask, is standing there, and Fennec has to step forward and say, you're emotional right now, and if she didn't, how would we know? Like, what is the moment in the way that it's shot or what's going on where we can really see that Boba's about to do something? Like, we're told that Boba's about to do something. Like, we're like, okay, I get it, he's emotional, but everything, like, the whole scene there was a lot of dialogue that was going on, but through the way it was shot, through the way they did things, like, I didn't get that Boba was about to fucking lose his cool and make bad decisions.
Yeah, we saw him reaching for his blaster, but Mike, there wasn't like a big body movement like we've seen with the Mandalorian when he has his helmet on. We can tell the emotions that are going on with the Mandalorian by body.
And look, and Boba, Tamora Morrison, and again, not faulting him, but I think that he has played Boba so cool for all of these episodes that had this been the moment where he lost his temper, had this been the moment where he was like really got pissed and shitty and like we really saw something, you'd be like, oh, and then Fennec had to pull him back, like then it's a thing. But the way it's all laid out, I understand logically that Cad is baiting Boba, and I know because I watched this scene and know that they have a history with each other that Boba is really trying to get under his skin to get the better of him, but it doesn't play the way that I think they wanted it to play.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I didn't mind the standoff moment. I think it made sense, the back and forth that they were going to have. But in the end, not having Fennec and Cad have any kind of exchange just kind of killed the whole moment for me. Because I'm like, there's no reason. I mean, in fact, he knows Omega. Doesn't he know Omega's his sister? So why don't you use that information, too? There is another Boba Fett or something like that. I mean, there's a possibility here to play around with it that they could have added even more of a dramatic element to that standoff that didn't 100% go off. And yeah, I mean, the whole overwhelming of Krssantan, all of that, because we didn't spend time getting to know those families, didn't spend time. And look, some people put it in the chat here, oh, this is your opinions. Yeah, it's what a fucking review is. And looking at the whole situation here, I'm like, yeah, my opinion is that we could have had more time with all of these characters, more of the political machinations, which Laura said in episode 1 or in the trailer when we were talking. Laura said, I feel like this was, kind of inside my mind, talking about the political stuff. And I thought we were going to get more of that. And we didn't. We really didn't. It was all really surface. There was not a big exploration. This doesn't feel like any of those underworld scripts that Lucas might have written. This felt very surface. And you're handed this, now you take this into the next thing. And now you take this into the next thing. But where's the depth? Where's the complexity? Where's the different things that I wanted to, where's the different layers to it that I have to think about when a certain exchange is happening? And unfortunately, that wasn't there 100%. And that kind of undercut the powerful moments of betrayal, of death, of near death, and certainly the Gamorrean guards. I mean, that was just wrong, man. I didn't like that. What did someone say? Rocksteady and what's his face? Bebop. Yeah, not the best guards there. But yeah, I mean, just having them go out the way they went. They were badass Gamorrean guards. Why would they get just essentially intimidated off a cliff? It doesn't make sense.
Those two were some ride or die. They were ride or die sausage. Those two.
Thelma and Louise, man, right off that cliff, dog. right off that cliff.
That's
All right, let's get
fucking
into some of
callous. Jesus.
Let's get into some of these Streamlabs and super chats here as we go along. John Getz said the whole resolution of their conflict and their setup for sniping also goes absolutely nowhere as they don't take out the Scorpion droid at all. Does that make sense?
She's yeah. John's talking about the gal from Freetown and Drash when they go up to the roof.
Yeah, that's true. Later on,
it didn't work. He's right.
We have Renegade 4288 said all of the credits Boba saved up from the Spice Trade Empire will now be spent repairing the destruction caused by the Rancor.
I thought of that. I was like, by the end of the episode, I was like, Boba was like, I really want to protect the people of Mos Espa. And I was like, well, you just destroyed that town, brother.
As a tower collapses behind him.
Right.
People of Mos Espa, I have saved you. Boom, 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 boom.
It's like Leslie.
Starting now.
It's like Leslie Nielsen. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see. And everything was falling apart behind it. All right, J Murph 22. We got a few of these, so let's power through these. J Murph 22 says, "Love you guys. Any thoughts on the score for the Book of Boba Fett? I thought Joseph Shirley did a great job tweaking Ludwig's amazing themes, especially in chapters 5 and 6. The second half score album dropped today, and I've been listening on repeat. Thanks." Yeah, guys. And Laura, any thoughts on the score?
I've been listening to the
awesome.
Rogue One expanded score all day, so I haven't had a chance to sit down and dive into this one yet.
Yeah, fair enough. That's my Sunday, Laura. Absolutely.
Did you guys notice prior to the finale that during the closing credits music that they're saying Boba Fett?
Yes.
I had never
Yes.
heard that before.
I'd never heard that before.
It's just this one. It's only
It's just that one, okay?
It's only the
I-
finale.
I don't think this song needs lyrics.
Boba!
I think it was stronger. I think it was stronger instrumentally.
I do. I didn't know that the second. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I didn't know that the second album dropped today, so thank you for that. I'm actually excited to listen to it. I think the score is really, really strong. I think Ludwig Göransson is stronger, but I think that this was definitely. It felt of the world. It felt great, and particularly, I think, as most people, episodes 5 and 6, I'm really excited to. I have like a Star Wars score playlist. I have like an MCU playlist that goes from Iron Man all the way to like Hawkeye.
It takes days to get.
It takes days to get through. And I've built a Star Wars one that goes from like Phantom Menace all the way through Rise of Skywalker, and I've been dropping in like the Boba Fett stuff. So I'm excited to listen to particularly episodes 5 and 6 and gank a few tracks to add to my playlist.
Fair enough. Laura, could they release that on album? I want that extended Rogue One on album. I don't want it digital. I want it on albums.
Okay, Grandpa.
I'm just
I imagine they will.
I love the sound of the
You want to listen to that? You want to listen to that score on your gramophone?
You know what? Anna C. Vasquez says,
Did you say grandpa phone?
Eh?
These two aren't that far away. Don't let them fool you, ladies and gentlemen. Anna C. Vasquez says, I absolutely love your reviews. You guys are awesome. My question is, do you think Grogu will yield the Darksaber at some point? If so, when do you think it might happen? Laura?
Wield or yield?
Yield.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think I think that's probably inevitable. I would be willing to bet we won't see it for a very long time, but yeah, I think I kind of think that's the direction they're maybe going in. But it's also sort of a question of like, if Grogu was alive during the sequel trilogy, would we not have known that? Like, seen him something? And I get why he wasn't developed until after the fact, but like in universe, I don't know. He may not be around long enough to do so. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Mike, does he want to yield it after he sees he can't cut through a force field with it? Does he really want to use it? I don't know.
I mean, we all already know that lightsabers can't do that. We've seen Clone Wars. We know about these battle droids and their force
Someone tell
fields.
Mando. Someone tell Mando.
I do think, and we talked about it in the past week, like I do think that Grogu being sort of a Jedi foundling, technically tied to Mandalorian, like he is very much the most Tar Vizsla character of all characters aside from Tar Vizsla. So the fact that he sort of fits in that pocket, Jedi Mandalorian, and he is of two worlds, him wielding the Darksaber is inevitable. I am curious to see what their plan. Like, look, they clearly, Filoni and Favreau and all these guys, like, they have a plan. And in the same way that Ezra sort of exited the galaxy at the end of Rebels to come back in after the original trilogy, I am sure they have some plan for where Grogu was during the new trilogy and what was going on with him and what battles he or Din or whoever were. Like, they know how to. I was talking to somebody the other day and I called it dancing through the raindrops. Like, they know how to take their characters and dance through the raindrops of episodes 7, 8, and 9 and come out at the other end and pick it back up and be like, in the same way that I think we all assume we're going to see Ezra Bridger pretty soon, we'll probably pick up with Grogu after the fact, and he'll be a darksaber wielding badass sometimes after Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, fair enough. Shannon, anything before we move on to the next one?
I mean, I think the darksaber physically is probably too big for him, but I think the visual of tiny Grogu force wielding the darksaber, I think, could be incredibly cool.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All right, Fantastic 314 says, hey, Geek Buddies, do you think the writers painted themselves into the proverbial corner with the Book of Boba Fett, which is why we had the Mandalorian appear? We had an episode and a half of Mando that could have waited for season 3. Thanks, guys. Shannon, you brought it up. Do you think the same thing? Do you think they painted themselves in the corner?
I don't think they painted. I think this was fully deliberate.
Okay.
I don't think they painted themselves into a corner, because when you're writing this stuff, I mean, you know, with streaming and cable shows, you write the whole season and then you start shooting. I mean, and granted, you're rewriting as you go along. But I think this was all fully deliberate. Why they chose to do this, that's the big question. And my guess is we will never know, because more than likely, I doubt Favreau nor Filoni nor Robert Rodriguez will ever be enabled to talk about the criticism that the show has received. That's my guess.
Fair point. I am too fly. Chem AWA said they did my boy Cad Bane dirty. He's definitely not dead though, so maybe they can clean him up for future shows.
I don't know, man.
You saw the beat.
He seemed pretty dead.
I think he's dead.
Yeah,
I don't love it. I agree that I think they did him dirty. I think Cad Bane had a lot more. Cad Bane coming into live action was such a big deal, as you could tell based on Twitter. But I kind of think that Filoni, when Cad Bane showed up in season 2 of Clone Wars, I think that Filoni was like, one day Boba Fett kills Cad Bane. I think that was always in their head, that like, Cad Bane, we're going to introduce this badass bounty hunter, but one day this is the guy that Boba takes down. And I think they saw this as, let's bring Cad Bane in and let's tell the end of this story. And I think it didn't get this told as well as we would have loved. I think that there's a way you could have told this thing and had this been the final moment of Cad Bane that we all would have been like, that was right. And I think we didn't really feel that way. And so I kind of feel the same way. I'm like, man, would have been great to have him around for a while, because what a fucking badass.
Yeah, fair. I am too fly. Cam also says, am I crazy? I feel Fennec was doing too much. Every fight scene, she was the muscle. She even gets to kill all the family heads and the mayor at the end. I love Fennec, but that should have been Boba's triumph. Just my opinion. I want to address this one. I absolutely agree with you. Not that Fennec did too much. I don't agree with the first part he sentence, but I do agree with the second part. I think it should have been Fennec taking out Cad Bane, and I think it should have been Boba taking out the 5 families for betraying him and the trust and the treaty they had essentially entered into, and the mayor and the Pike. That, because the Pikes killed the Tusken Raiders, which is how you wrap up the storyline for the first 4 episodes, is have him killed, not the Ninko guys, because they were the wrong guys. It's the Pikes who did it. So you killed. So it was odd to have Fennec do it. It just seemed odd on so many levels. So I thought they messed that up in terms of the writing and how they mapped this thing out. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I fully agree that the person that was responsible for his adopted family's death needed to die at his hands. I think there was a wasted opportunity to give the Pike leader more of an identity.
Yeah.
Especially when they met in episode 2 at the end, if that is the same guy, I'm presuming it is.
Yeah. It is.
When they met at the conclusion of that train sequence, that we needed to give, like, I don't even know if that guy had a name. Like, maybe he did. I don't think he did. But yes, Cad Bane should have escaped so we could see more of him. And Boba, that leader, should have been at the big shootout with everyone else.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Bring me my father back, you son of a bitch. Pierre J says, I agree with Shannon 100%. John, Mike, and Laura, y'all are awesome, but you're being too nice. While there were some great moments as an overall / cohesive story, this show was a bust. Laura, care to address
I feel like we've been criticizing it for most of it. I'm like, overall, I thought it was really fun because, again, Baby Yoda showed up, and we're going to get into the Rancor later. I was happy about those things. I don't know. I feel like we are kind of nitpicking through it a little bit, which is fine. We can do that here if we want to. So I don't know.
I think to be fair, so I think like, and maybe this is what I'm doing a little bit, is that like I just go through Twitter and I see people like just like they don't like the episode and they just hate on it. And I do think that like I think this is what Shannon's saying too. Like I'm hating on the execution without hating on overall direction. I think that where everything ends up at the end with Boba and Krssantan and Fennec and the mods kind of like in Mos Espa, but like I think like broad strokes what they set up is fine. And even though I agree with Shannon that they probably would have been better served to save the Mando and Grogu stuff for Mando, I was happy to see it, and all the Grogu stuff I loved. So there was stuff I really enjoyed in the episode, and I can kind of come away and be like, I don't feel like this is gloom and doom, the sky is falling. But I'm with Laura, like, as we're going through this, every time we get to a new scene, I'm like, well, let me tell you why this was garbage. So I feel kind of bad. So I'm kind of trying to balance it out with like, look, here's what was fun, and I did enjoy these moments while still sort of critiquing, like, here's where I think they were off base.
Yeah. Well, because I don't know. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to jump in. Anyway, all right. CNC said, it feels like the creative team did not have a lot of faith in Tamora Morrison to carry the show, which is disappointing. Still think Chapter 2 was the best episode because it was the best Boba episode. Yeah, I've had to rethink my thoughts on Robert because I wanted to defend him to some of the people. I tweeted that out yesterday, 2 days ago. Like, people were like going crazy on him, but they were letting Favreau's writing escape criticism, and it bothered me. But then someone mentioned, hey, Steph Green did an excellent job in that second episode with the writing of Favreau. So, and that made me rethink my position a little bit. So maybe there is enough blame to go around here on both of their parts. Robert could have directed a better episode here because Steph did that with John's writing. So maybe there's something here where they're collaborating and Steph figured out what to take from John's script and really kind of hone it. And whereas Robert had a little more fun with it, a little more loose with it, maybe that wasn't the right approach for some people.
And also, I mean, I'm certainly not defending Favreau 100%. I think he absolutely is culpable for the mistakes that he made in the way that they executed Boba Fett. But I think the difference is that Favreau wrote with other people. Like, Favreau is credited as the writer for all of season 1 and season 2 of Mandalorian and all of Boba, including the 2 episodes that we all fell all over ourselves about and talked about every amazing moment. So that doesn't mean that Favreau can't make mistakes, and he 1000%, in my opinion, did. But Favreau wrote the best and the worst. Rodriguez, in my opinion, directed the worst.
Okay, fair. PRJ says, do you think Disney chickened out on the original premise? We were sold a story of the Star Wars underworld. Instead, we got a wonky bad guy go straight arc for Boba. Is it possible Disney realized the mob/underworld story was not Disney Plus appropriate? What do you think, Laura?
I don't know about that. I mean, I think this kind of goes back to the fact that they had all this planned out ahead of time. They didn't like insert the Mandalorian episodes later because they were like, oh, people don't like it. Like, that's it. We've talked about how that's just not how it works. And
we have these lying around. Let's just shove them in.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't know. I think that I agree that the show, I think, could have, maybe been served better with multiple writers. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I don't know if I think that that's how it went.
Yeah, I mean, I got it, Mike and Shannon. I mean, you guys are writers. You obviously Mike show running, Shannon writing episodes. You understand there's an overall arc to deliver here. It feels like, is this what people mean when they were afraid of something Disneyifying something? They don't go deep enough. They don't go dark enough. And look, you've got Boba, who is what a lot of people consider to be a pretty ruthless bounty hunter. Even Cad Bane makes that line, which I cannot repeat because I don't know what he was saying there. But essentially saying, like, it's funny that you're
Laura
the one.
Laura, say it. What is it?
Laura, yes, I don't know the line.
Oh, I have to scroll back up in my 9 pages of notes. I don't know.
All right. Well, either way,
not the Quokta calling the Stifling slimy.
There we go. And it's just basically saying, dude, you're coming at me, and you want to remember all the people you've killed, all the probably men, women, and children of different species you've killed. Now all of a sudden you've grown a heart. So there's a little bit here that there's a little darkness that could have been explored, and it wasn't. And I thought, I felt the same way at times about The Mandalorian. At times they pitched us something in that first season. They never really 100% went fully dark. Even though there were some dark moments, they didn't 100% went dark. But this is what you have to kind of accept about Star Wars. Rogue One is maybe the darkest we're ever going to go. We'll see what Andor does. But maybe Rogue One is as dark as it's ever going to get, because you do have that kid element. You do have the more kind of hopeful element, the redemption arcs, all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, Vader slicing people up in Rogue One is pretty damn dark, and them all dying at the end is pretty damn dark. But
sure,
there's more. There's deeper places to go, in my opinion.
Din Djarin sliced a guy in half an episode. Like, what are we talking about? Like, yeah. I think like we there's this constant. Yeah, because you never see a blood with a lightsaber. It instantly cauterizes. Have you not seen how a lightsaber works?
Yes, Dr. Vogel. Go ahead, yes.
But no, I just think that like this whole thing that like Disney is somehow hovering over, and like Mickey and Snow White are like playing like standards and practices, like making sure like I don't think that's happening. Like
Whoa, boy, you can't do that.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, I just don't think. I think that they're perfectly happy to let Star Wars be, because the level of violence and the level of darkness that we're seeing in these episodes, to me, feels like the level of darkness that we've always seen in Star Wars. And I think that arguably in some ways it gets a little darker, and some way but I think that it's complete. At no point in any episodes of Mandalorian, nor in Book of Boba Fett, do I feel like we've all of a sudden got this kinder, gentler Star Wars where everyone's like dancing around. I think that honestly what happens, like if you really want my opinion on the executive side, is I think that they kind of knew that Book of Boba Fett was falling flat at some point early on. I think what's happening right now, when you look at the rollout of all these things and what everyone's working on, Jon Favreau is writing these Boba Fett episodes, and he's also hard at work on Mandalorian Season 3, because they've got to have that come out soon. And Dave Filoni is obviously over and focused on what he's doing with Ahsoka. Super excited to do Ahsoka and Sabine and pick up the Thrawn threads of things. And they were like, hey, Robert Rodriguez, you're kind of the guy on Boba Fett, and we're going to come into our episodes, and Jon Favreau's still going to write everything. But at a certain point, I think other people were running with this, and I think that at the point that Favreau and Filoni and other people were like, ooh, okay, not great, let's fix it as best we can. And that happens all the time on shows. Like, this is, the reality is that given production timelines, given release dates, given everything, sometimes you're working on a show and you get to a certain point and you're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Let's make it as awesome as we can. And that happens way more than you would think it would happen, even on huge budget shows that are super, super important.
I wanted Peacemaker Boba. Anyway, go ahead, Shannon.
Well, I mean, and it does seem like there was probably a disconnect from what they shot for the end of the Mandalorian season 2, when Boba came in and shot Bib Fortuna, versus what we eventually got. Now, there are little things that you can do in writing and directing. If Bib Fortuna pulls first, Boba Fett is perfectly justified in shooting him. But we were presented with something at the beginning that, and again, I think we watched the first trailers of things, or we watch the first episode of a show, and we start to construct what we think it's going to be in our head. And rarely does it ever live up. But in my head, I'm kind of like, okay, he wants to become the crime lord because he knows the Pykes killed the Tuskens, and he wants to be in a position where he can kind of get justice for his family. And that's not what happened. I think what we got was 100% what they intended on. And they, I think, is because even Ming-Na Wen referred to Robert Rodriguez as one of the showrunners. So even though Jon Favreau is the credited writer for 6 of the 7 episodes, I mean, he's credited with Dave Filoni for episode 6. I do think Favreau may have fallen asleep at the wheel a little bit, and this is what we got.
I mean, I don't even think it's falling asleep at the wheel. I think the dude's busy. Like, he's
Mandalorian
he spread too thin.
Okay.
Let's move aside. Somebody corrected me here saying, hey, they're pushing pigs off cliffs. How dark do you want them to go? And Clarissa says they lynched the mayor. Well, they didn't lynch the mayor. Let's use that term correctly. They hung the mayor. She didn't lynch the mayor. That's a different connotation there. But yeah, I take your point. Thanks you to Ray Dominguez for a nice little super chat here. Ray, if you were trying to send a message, send it again, but it just said support. Cheers. So thank you, Ray. And we got a couple more, and then we got to get back into this thing. Okay, Patrick said, thanks for this fun show. Keep Laura around. She knows her stuff. Well, first of all, Patrick, we don't keep Laura around. We ask Laura to come join us, and she graciously joins us. So let's make that clarification. I was going to donate double this until Shannon bashed Peli Moto. Oh, wow. Shannon. Cutting into our bank account here, Shannon.
How much was it? Do you need a check? Do we need a red check?
It was a whopping $5. All right, Carnivore said Boba and Fennec were very reminiscent of Biden and Harris on the campaign trail. What? Perhaps it was Boba's toothy grin, but they took.
We did it, Boba. We did it, Boba. We did it.
Oh, but then Boba's like, I don't know, should we have done it? Anyway, and the galaxy is better for it. Thanks again to each of you for elevating our love of Star Wars. I appreciate that. Pierre saying, a danger of live super chats. My comment about being too nice was more for the opening remarks, so time delay did match. You all are doing great. And then Simon Love said, we can say what we want about Robert Rodriguez, but he made the unfair death of Gamorrean guards hit me like the death of Han Solo. Whoa! Not the best, but nobody's canceling their Disney Plus account for this either.
For sure. No, I mean that. And by the way, like, let's keep it all in perspective. Like, the four of us are still gonna geek out on every single one of these things. And
they put the poster of Kenobi up, and I was already excited. So yeah,
like, so I don't think that Rodriguez did the best job, but he certainly is not the worst Star Wars director. I could think of one in particular that I'm gonna put high up on that list, way before him.
What are you trying to say? Kazid Ia says, Ben Saber drew blood in A New Hope. Vogel.
That was before they figured some shit out. You know what? Yeah. You know what? I didn't see blood spurting when Vader chopped off Luke's hand.
That's true. There's a lot of screaming down.
And also Darth Maul. Period.
Fair. Super Mighty Mega says, flashbacks with Daniel Logan feel unresolved, although we know what happens to Kamino. What happened to Boba after Genosha? Could have been a chapter. Tech on Luke could have been used for Logan. Thoughts?
Again, I think a young Boba, Cad Bane episode where you kind of get some context for those people that did not see the deleted scene from the Clone Wars. I think that could have been interesting. That could have been a lot of fun. I mean, what the Mandalorian seasons are 10 episodes, and this is only 7. And 2 of those weren't really about our main story. I mean, there was room to probably do something like that. And for whatever reason, this is the path they chose.
Well, and I do think, I think we all love, I think we said multiple times, we all love that second episode. I think that chapter 2 is the best Boba Fett episode of Book of Boba Fett.
Agreed.
And he has that whole vision on Kamino. We see him as a young kid. His dad is flying away. And it kind of felt like we were setting something up that needed to be resolved. If you're watching Peacemaker right now, they kind of do a similar thing. They just resolve it. And I feel like we were setting something up and we were going to see where it goes. And I just feel like that kind of got dropped.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep going because we're running out of time here. We go back to the sanctuary. The Pykes walk in to basically surround the place with Boba and the Mandalorian. Nice exchange between Boba and the Mandalorian about their philosophies, teasing a little bit of Mando's commitment to that sect. That's gonna pay dividends in season 3, I imagine. But Boba being happy that he's willing to stick around and essentially sacrifice himself in this situation. Boba won't abandon Mos Espa, so Mando says they will rush out and die with honor. Just then, the Major Domo pipes up and says, he can negotiate a truce by groveling and offering a certain amount of money. Boba writes down what his terms are. He walks out to offer the terms of surrender and then reads them after an exchange about his head. There is a Twi'lek, and Major Domo reads that Boba's offered them nothing, and that if they don't stand down, he will kill them. Just when it looks like Major Domo is probably going to get killed, don't shoot the messenger, they come out shooting. Do Boba and Mandalorian with their jetpacks on. The knee rockets make a return after Boba is disarmed for a moment. Mando goes down, shoots off the hand rockets, but the numbers of the Pykes are too great. They just keep coming. They're getting shot to shit when all of a sudden the people of Freetown show up to save him in their little speeder. Boba says, the people of Freetown. And I wrote, how does he fucking know it's them? They use the speeder as cover. He's never been to Freetown, never met them. They use the speeder as cover. Anyway, the Mod Squad shows up in their brightly colored speeders, which makes them real easy to see in a fight. And of course, they are shot and knocked out. Krssantan shows up dragging all the Trandoshans. That was a hell of a walk. He is shot down by the Pykes, and Boba runs out to save him. The Pykes fall back. Mando uses infrared to show some new insane droids coming around the corner with massive force fields. They march slowly towards them when Boba shoots his rocket. That does nothing. The people run, and Mando and Boba try to take these droids out by themselves, even using the dark saber, which does nothing. Boba takes off to try to find reinforcements. We cut to Freetown. We cut to the Freetown people and Krssantan, and they try to hold off the droids, who can't seem to kill any of them. Peli shows up, saves Mando with Drash. And I said this, and I apologize to everybody who loves Drash. I said, Drash, the same military genius who said they should stay in the sanctuary, thinks they should stay there in that back area and offers to shoot something to help them escape. We cut back to Mando and Peli Motto, and we have Grogu, who is there, which is such a sweet moment shoved into all this action. Mando sees he has the chainmail. They're reunited. Peli tells him to save the tender moment for later. Then Grogu, for some reason, short circuits their droid and gets them launched off the carrier. Peli spits out a tooth as they shoot at the droid, and just then the Rancor comes out with Boba riding it. It tries to smash through the force field. Mando then wipes out the darksaber again, or whips out the darksaber again. The Rancor is shot, but Mando manages to slice a piece of it off. Grogu walks out, uses his force power to pull off a piece of the droid, but doesn't disable it. Then eventually Boba on the Rancor rips it in half. Shannon, there's a lot of action here to cover. We're running out of time. Talk to me about this section of the show here with all these battles going on between the Pykes, the Major Domo, and then, of course, what happens here with these droids and the Rancor.
I will be as brief as I can. Okay, so the whole Fett-Mando exchange that they had, where Fett presumes that Mando's going to leave, and Mando has the great, like, this is the way, we'll die with honor. That should not have been Mando. That should have been Boba and one of the mods, another character where Boba is taking the things that he learned from the Tuskens and is applying them to this situation and giving that whole backstory a little more weight. David Pasquesi, who I really like in Veep in this role, he's approaching Amy Sedaris. It's just like I just don't enjoy this character, even though I did think the exchange between he and the Pike was pretty funny. Yeah. Where the Pike is like, just spit it out. The action that we then get, the two Mandalorians flying and shooting, awesome. Like that was cool. That was a blast to see. Having the Rancor show up again. These are the concept art paintings that to me the show was sold on. It's like we're seeing some really, really great stuff here. The people of Freetown show up, in their pickup, which I thought was a lot of fun. I think it was probably not the best military strategy to come in a vehicle and stop. Yeah. But all of this stuff was fun and exciting. But I agree with you, John. The moment that Drash offers some tactical advice, it's like, maybe we don't listen to her. But Krssantan coming in, dragging all those Trandoshans, that is, again, that's great comedy. Like that's really, really funny. But overall, it's just you just see the for me, the holes in the writing are starting to become very apparent, despite the fact that there was some great visuals.
Okay. Mike, what do you think about this whole situation here? The battles that are going on here, all of it going on and then eventually the Rancor showing up. Did you feel like they set up these moments right? Did you feel that reunion moment with Mando and Grogu? Did you feel that moment with Boba coming in riding the Rancor?
So, like I said, I generally agree with Shannon that had they not had Mando and Grogu in all this and had spent the page count, the page time on other characters, it probably would have been better for those other characters. That being said, I thought this Boba-Mando scene was one of the better scenes in the episode. Like, I love this moment between them. I think that once you accept that these are the choices they made, it works great. And, like, Mando basically being like, yo, dude, I'm ride or die with you because that's my religion, so let's go die. Like, I was like, I love this guy. It made me like Din Djarin more than Boba, which I think is kind of the overall problem with Star Wars right now is we are all way more Team Din than we are Team Boba at the end of the day, if we're all being honest with ourselves. The Rancor. Before I get to the Rancor, like them coming out and fighting, great. Watching those two, like you just show me those two fighting each other, and fighting next to each other and just waging war on everyone else. I could watch that for 40 minutes and just be happy. Like they looked awesome, they looked great. 100% here for it. Watching them both flying in, like, great. I was super, super happy about it.
Right.
Star Wars right now rests on Din Djarin and Grogu and their love for each other. So that reunion, even in the middle of everything, Peli Motto with her little droid that's rolling them around and the pit droids running on either side, and she's like, hey, yo, here's Grogu. Like, it's the weirdest moment to have this epic reunion, but the second that Din Djarin is like, hey, what are you doing here? You got the chain. You got my present, babe. Yeah. Babe, you got my present. And you're like, yeah, I'm sold. Grogu jumped in his arms, and I'm like, yep, great, I'm in. As far as Boba on the Rancor, he came in, and I was like, might have been a better idea to fly your ship in, if I'm just being honest about this. That was probably the smarter move. But that being said, I will say this for the episode. That Rancor looked fucking fabulous. So for all of the this is kind of weird, does this work, does this not, like that Rancor looked fucking great. I mean, it's one of those moments where I, like, as I'm critiquing it and kind of being annoyed about the things I'm annoyed about, I also kind of remind myself that we're all fucking spoiled because we're watching a TV show with a CG Rancor that looks so good, and you're just like, you know what, whatever. The other part I just wanted to add is I love seeing Clone Wars era tech in original trilogy era timelines. Like, we're like, just because of the nature of Star Wars and everything in the original trilogy is older because it was the 70s and early 80s, and then everything in the prequels looked shinier and slicker, and George Lucas explained that was the core worlds, and we're like, yeah, cool, whatever. But so whenever we see things like droids with the force fields and everything that are kind of right out of the prequels or the Clone Wars in sort of Mos Espa, which has an original trilogy feel, the mix and match of those things cheeses me out. So despite some of the weirdness of the action and how maybe it didn't all work perfectly, like seeing a Rancor attack a Clone Wars era droid, as a nerd, I was like, this is cool. I'm in. This is great stuff.
Yeah, Laura, talk to me. I mean, we had a nice comedic moment with we had a nice philosophical exchange between the two Mandalorians, and then a nice comedic moment with Major Domo that I worked. Shannon apparently doesn't like comedy in Star Wars, but I liked it. And I'm shipping these two, by the way. I'm all with the Peli Motto Major Domo series. Give me that sitcom right now.
That ain't comedy. That ain't comedy.
Come on. Give me that.
They fucking.
Cannon, a heart attack. Careful.
Well, they're absolutely having sex. They're absolutely going to have sex. There's a little Twi'lek Peli Motto coming, that's for sure. We get that, and then we get this exchange with Grogu that's really sweet. But why does he pull out the thing? Why doesn't he just crush this thing? It seems odd. Why does he crush the droid and shoot them? What is it? Does this make sense? Laura, talk to me. What did you think about this area, section of the show?
Well, I gotta hit the Mando and Boba Fett conversation, because I also really, really love that part of this episode. I feel like it could have been like the emotional sort of high point of this episode if we hadn't had the Din and Grogu reunion later on. But I like that, we know that Din is kind of going through a sort of identity crisis right now, but he still is sticking to his guns of that loyalty and like, I am here to be your ride or die. But there's this weird component when I was watching the scene where like it just kind of, there isn't really a strong connection between the two of them. Like in the Mando season 2 finale, Boba Fett is in the fire spray. He's not really part of that episode for like most of the heart of it. And that, the conversation in this episode is great, but I just don't know if there was like enough setup to really connect these two characters together to have that conversation. It was much more endearing to like who Din is as a character, right? For sure. I want to jump ahead to the two of them flying around on the jetpacks. I feel like any complaint we had about how things looked prior to this episode, all of the budget went to this. It went to this entire like battle sequence, and most of it went to the two of them flying around on jetpacks because it looked amazing every single time, and I loved it. Now, when Boba Fett did fly off to go get the Rancor, I thought for sure he was going to fly off to go find these sand people. I don't know why I thought that, but mostly because they didn't resolve that piece of it where we did not see some of the sand people bodies that I think we should have seen if we wanted to actually think that they were dead.
Yeah.
I just kept expecting them to come back into the fray at some point. So the fact that that payoff never happened is a little bit exciting. This reunion between Din and Grogu is quite possibly maybe one of my favorite scenes in all of Star Wars. I love it so much. I love that it was happening with the rickshaw droid just dragging all of them around Mos Espa. It was just this perfect emotional action sequence that I really, really enjoyed. Ripping apart the droid when we had the Rancor come in was just perfect.
Yeah.
Do it. I mean, again, it just looked so good. I mean, Boba Fett riding the Rancor itself, all of it just looked amazing to me. And even when Din is battling it later on, it all just looked perfect. So I really did enjoy most of that sequence. There is one part I do have one complaint where, like, it kind of looks like Din Djarin drops the Darksaber in the sand and then never picks it back up. And I need to go back and like watch the episode again to like see if he has it at some point, but I'm just like, can we just make sure that he gets it? Like, I can see it sitting in the sand there. Like, it's a real little detail, but can somebody just raise their hand and just be like, sorry, can we redo that shot and just have him grab it really quick? Would that be all right?
I like in my fantasy, I like have Laura like in Star Wars just being like, babe.
Hey,
babe,
you
pick
have
up the
one job.
Darksaber, babe.
Pick it up.
Pick it up.
Happy to accept that job.
Yeah, I would love that. All right, let's move on to the next section here. Where are we at here? Back to the Mod Squad video. Oh yeah, back to the Mod Squad and the Freetown people. Drash and the Freetown person shoot at the droid. Oh yeah, the female Freetown person. They climb up to the top of the tower there. They shoot at the droid to distract it, and then the Rancor shows up and knocks it into a wall. So really, what was the point of it being up there? I don't know. They battle until the Rancor disables it by stabbing it in the eye. Mando runs in with Grogu and says they keep them on the run, or to keep them on the run. Then Peli reveals the Major Domo, and they have a fun little, or Peli saves the Major Domo, and they have a fun little exchange. As I said, can't wait for that Jack Tripper sitcom with those two. Rancor is eating the Pykes and lifting them up for Mando to shoot. Just then, Cad Bane shows up and launches some flames that knocks Boba off and makes the Rancor run. I put, what the fuck? Now it's Boba versus Cad Bane. As we were alluding to before, Cad asks him what his angle is. He tells him he wants to defend Freetown. They have a standoff with Cad, getting the best of him, completely shooting him every time until Boba uses the Tusken stick to disable him. And after one last shot, he stabs Cad Bane. We pass over him. We're not sure if he's dead. One light is beeping on his uniform. There's a battle over whether he's dead or not going on. The Rancor is suddenly out of control, so they decide to shoot at it. Seems smart. It turns its attention to them. Mando tells them to stop shooting. He now becomes King Kong and climbs to the top of the highest building, and Mando gives Grogu some kind of device. Oh, gives him the little the knock thing and the knob, and flies up to stop the Rancor. The Rancor, he becomes Fey Ray in King Kong. The Rancor eventually tosses him away after trying to eat his head off through the helmet. Grogu walks out, puts the Rancor to sleep with his force powers, cuddles up next to him, and Peli Moto makes a barbecue crack as Grogu snuggles up to sleep with the Rancor. Michael, let's stop here. Thoughts on this whole situation? We've already kind of alluded to the battle between Cad Bane and Boba, but this is also the spin moment that a lot of people have been quoting, or that I don't want to allude to, but if you want to address it, feel free. And then, of course, we end up with Grogu calming the Rancor down and snuggling up to sleep next to it.
All I'm going to say about the spin moment, because I think plenty has been said about the spin moment, is that, because I've seen people on both sides sort of arguing with each other about it, and I'm like, I don't think that having an awesome moment of badass flair in a show is a bad idea. I think you can do that whenever you want. When a bunch of people point it out, it's usually because it wasn't executed perfectly or fully justified. And so I think that the concept of the spin and do a cool move, people do crazy shit in movies all the time. I think maybe this one was an attempt at that didn't necessarily land, but I don't think it was the worst thing in the world either. So that is what I think about that. Look, I think that I'll focus on the Cad Bane and Boba of it all, because I think everything else was sort of like, it was what it was. It was all a little messy. It all was like, this is where the Robert Rodriguez of it all, I feel like we're not really diving in on things. We don't really know, to what Shannon's point was, like, the Drash and Freetown girl going up on the top didn't really get us anywhere. So there was a lot of things where everyone was running around. There was a bunch of stuff happening, and it didn't all necessarily amount to a ton. That being said, Rancor fighting awesome droid, awesome. So it was fun to watch. If at the same time I was like, this probably could have been done a little bit better. Okay. Cad Bane and Boba, I think Cad Bane is dead. I don't want Cad Bane to be dead, and if Cad Bane is not dead, I will be the happiest person in the world. I thought Darth Maul was dead for a very long time because he was cut in half. And if Darth Maul can come back because his anger kept his insides inside of him, anything is on the table. So I'm not, don't come at me saying you said Cad Bane was dead. I'm pretty sure they think he's dead, but I also think they're looking at Twitter and enough people are like, why did you do that? That Cad Bane might make a comeback. But I do think the intention here was this is the final moment of Cad Bane. Cad Bane was created to one day be defeated by Boba, and when they made this show, they did it. I think conceptually, the idea, because Boba sort of, again, focusing on chapter 2, is like, I want to leave my bounty hunter life behind, and I have really embraced the ways of the Tuskens. The fact that him in the High Noon shootout, Cad Bane got the better of him, but it was actually the Tusken Gaffy stick that got him over the top and did defeat Cad Bane. From a writing point on the page, all of that feels very interesting. It feels very cool to me, but I think the execution of it kind of felt like Cad Bane went down like a chump. I think that that's what it really is that for all that they built up Cad Bane, for all that we've been wanting Cad Bane, for all that we've seen Cad Bane be just a straight badass in so many episodes, it did feel like it went, and this is where I do fault. I think there's plenty of places where we should fault Favreau over Rodriguez, as I see people saying in the chat, and I think that's completely valid. Yeah. This is a place where I feel like Boba versus Cad Bane shoots, Boba uses the gaffy stick because he has evolved beyond just being a bounty hunter. On the page, that all makes sense to me. I think it was, had it been shot better, when you think of like Cad Bane's reveal in the previous episode and how that was an homage to the spaghetti westerns and how it was so moody and so cool and so great. Had you taken a little bit of that and put it here, I think it would have gone a long way.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. People saying, Joey J say, if I have a chance to spin and shoot, I'm spinning and shooting. That's what Joey says.
Fair. You know what? As you should. As you should.
As Philip Bryan says, he didn't do Orlando level cool, but who could? Certainly not me. That's for sure. And Ray saying, hold on, I'm going to do my spin move. And I love Eric the Red bringing a wrestling reference in for Booker T. He did the spin-a-rooney. No, he did not do the spin-a-rooney, but pretty cool situation there. Yeah, I agree with you, Mike, and we'll get to Laura here next. But for me, the standoff as an outlaw, as a lover of Westerns, the standoff, there was something that was really tone deaf in the execution. Cad Bane constantly got the better of him until Boba had to use the sneaky move with the stick. That stick is supposed to symbolize honor and respect and a warrior's code. To him to use it in a sneaky, underhanded heel or villain manner, I thought really undercut the situation because Cad Bane had got the best of him and Cad Bane had won that battle. So to have him use it that way, I was rewatching the Cad Bane fight with in Clone Wars with Ahsoka, and remember how he grabs Ahsoka and electrocutes her? That's the villain way to do things. So for me, it felt odd to have Boba revert to that in that moment, using the stick that symbolized something else. So I just felt like it didn't quite hit the right tone, but that's just my opinion. Laura, what'd you think of this whole section here and everything that went on with Cad Bane and Boba, and then later with Freetown and the Rancor?
Well, I'm on the other team. I really like this moment of Boba having his sort of comeuppance with Cad Bane, and I like the fact that he's the one that, of all the weapons at Boba's disposal and all the resources, he uses his gaffy stick. I think there's something really poetic about that. I appreciated that. Yep. I think that when it comes to whether or not Cad Bane is dead, the beeping monitor or whatever it is on him, I almost wondered if that was like something summoning his like ship or even summoning Toto, who we haven't seen yet.
Poor Toto.
I know. I'm like, he's gonna wonder what happened to Bane, but I don't know. Well, also Toto was horribly abused by Cad Bane, so this is all the better for Toto to end up this way. But I everybody thinking that he's still alive. I'm thinking he's probably dead. I'm wrong all the time. you all are probably right that he's probably still alive in some way, because it does seem crazy to go through all of the effort to create this live action version of Cad Bane only to take him out in 2 episodes. I mean, having that moment where he comes out and he's like having that wide distance standoff with Cobb Vanth, that would have, I think, played better if we'd had that moment in this episode with Boba Fett. Like we would have got, but then you would have killed Cad Bane off all the more quick. So I don't know what the answer is there. So I'll move on. But Star Wars becoming Godzilla and becoming King Kong is so fun. It was so fun to watch because, again, the Rancor just looks so great, and I love Rancors anyway. But we also get this great moment of Peli and the Major Domo and Grogu behind a table, and both of the adults are just high-pitched screaming as the Rancor roars at them, and I was just like dying. I thought it was so funny, and I really enjoyed it. And I know that Shannon disagrees, and that's fine. We can have our disagreements, but you know, this really great force bonding moment that Grogu has with the Rancor later on is another one of my favorite things in Star Wars, because we don't get a ton of it. We get a really brief moment in Attack of the Clones with Anakin sort of bonding with one of the animals in the arena, and then we get a lot of it in Star Wars Rebels because it's kind of Ezra's like specialty. But we haven't seen a ton of it since. And I really enjoyed it. So I'm glad that we got a little callback to that. And then I saw somebody on Twitter mentioned it, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned that this like little image of the Rancor and Grogu sort of sleeping, it's like this sweet little picture of Din and Boba's boys taking a nap together. And I just thought that
that's actually pretty cool. That's actually pretty cool. Before we get to Shannon real quick, we got almost 500 of you watching us live tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Please remember to hit that like button. It's really important to hit that like button. The likes and comments elevate visibility. So hit it as we're going along. So we're about to end the show here in a little bit. So love to get your likes as we're going along here. And if you're watching later, leave a comment. You guys are great. Leave a comments. Don't be argumentative. Don't be a dick, but leave a comment. You can still have a difference of opinion. Just be respectful. All right, Shannon, thoughts on everything that was going on here in this section of the show with the Rancor, with Grogu, with Peli Moto and the Major Domo, and with Boba and Mando?
All right, so I've drank an entire chocolate babka pastry stout. So I'm going to try to focus my thoughts here, but it's getting iffy.
All right.
So to the mod spin, when someone pointed that out on Twitter, that was one of the funniest things I read all day. However, throughout the history of Star Wars, throughout the history of action movies, there have been unnecessary spins. To Vogel's point, the way this particular one was filmed, it was especially egregious. It had nothing to do with the spin itself. It had nothing to do with the actor.
From the bottom up, as opposed to...
It was the way that he's got Krssantan's arm over his shoulder, throws the arm off, then spins to something that was directly in front of him. Yeah, that makes no sense. I mean, Mando did a spin in the sequence before. Like when I watched the episode a second time, I was like, wait, why did he do that? Okay, so it's not just... It's not just the mod guy.
It's Rodriguez bringing that in.
The way this particular one was shot, that's why it was kind of, I imagine, so off-putting for a lot of the audience. The Rancor versus the giant droids, that was a blast. That was so much fun. You're seeing what the Darksaber can't do, but you're seeing what Boba and this Rancor can do. Now, had in those 2 episodes where we were hanging out with the Mandalorian, had we seen a little more bonding with Boba and the Rancor, it would have landed harder. I mean, that was an awesome moment that would have hit us even harder. So, you know, it's a shame we didn't get to see that. All of the Rancor action, him throwing Pykes literally across the city, that was a blast. Then we get to the Boba Cad Bane shootout, and like, I get your point, John, but at the same time, like, Boba is on the ground. Cad Bane is the honorable thing just to die.
He closed his eyes. Remember, he closed his eyes. He was going to accept the death, and then spun around and used the gaffy stick. So
but I mean, Cad Bane is not an honorable guy, and Boba Fett would know this. So the fact that he's able to use the gaffy stick to then take him out, I hate that he killed him. Like, I know folks in the chat are saying that he's not dead. I hope you're right. It doesn't seem like in this scenario that they would leave, you know, that he's going to get up and walk away. But then getting to the Rancor sort of out of control. This I did not like, because the Rancor was the thing that was the turning point in the battle.
He just saved them. Why is he going insane? Why are they shooting at him? Yeah.
And now you're all shooting at him, and it's up to Grogu to kind of, you know, make him take a force nap. I really feel like, again, if like I don't agree with that direction that the Rancor is out of control. If that is the case, Boba's the one that should have done this. Boba's the one that has the connection with him.
Why wasn't Danny there to make sure the Rancor?
Danny took off. Like, Danny introduced him, then Danny took off. Danny's the absentee landlord.
Busy guy.
But no, I mean, it should have been Boba Fett. Again, I think the creative direction of him tearing up the town was not just, it was bad. But if that's the direction they wanted to go, Boba's the one that should have taken care of it, because Boba's the one that he had established enough trust with that he let him ride him. Yeah. So again, a lot of fun stuff here. A lot of moments where it was like, this is awesome Star Wars that I'm happy to watch eating breakfast. Like, it's like watching Saturday morning cartoons. But a lot of kind of creative choices.
It felt like, look, and let me explain the fight real quick. The standoff could have worked like this, where it's essentially initially Cad Bane who gets the first couple of shots in, then Boba starts to get the better of him, then he has him in that position. Cad Bane switches things around and it disarms him in some way, in some sneaky manner, kind of like he did with Ahsoka. And then Boba uses that stick in the last second to retake the advantage, because Cad Bane had got it in a sneaky way. That's the better way to use the stick. For me, having seen numerous gunfights, it's just the villain that uses that thing at the end when he's clearly been bested. So that's all. That's how you could have rearranged that fight a little bit better to keep the heroic aspect of Boba still cool. I love that he used the Gavi stick. Trust me, it meant the world. And Laura was right to point out the symbolism of that as well, for sure. All right, let's get into the last section here before we wrap up. We cut to the Pike leader, who is there with the head of the 5 families. Cool. The Pike leader wants to cut and run, but the head of the 5 families are not happy about it. What a surprise, you idiots. He's taking you for fools. Just then, Fennech Shand shows up and wipes them all out in a brutal fashion that was quite satisfying, including hanging the mayor and killing and stabbing the head of the Pykes there from behind. She is deft and crafty. We cut to the starport or landing area, and now Mos Espa seems to be fine. Everyone, Boba and Fennec are walking the streets freely. They're getting fruits and all these things from other people. Boba says they are not suited for this. What? We just spent 7 episodes making sure you lead, and now you're saying you're not suited for this? I literally stopped the episode and walked out and just got back in bed with my girlfriend for like 20 minutes. So then I came back and finished it. But isn't this what they wanted? Just then, Krssantan walks up with the Mod Squad, some terrible crack about the Mod Squad not getting a melon. And we mercifully cut away from them to Mando in the N1 or the Din one with Grogu in the back there. He is banging on the window with his knob so he can fly in warp speed. Initially, Mando says no a couple of times, and then eventually, bam, we take off, which is an awesome sequence. I love that. And then a post-credit scene, we see Cobb Vanth is using the bacta tank. And that was referenced a few minutes earlier, but when Fennec said that Boba should get in the bacta tank, and Boba said it's used right and it's being used right now. It is Cobb Vanth in that bacta tank. So I imagine they're setting up Cobb Vanth to take over Mos Espa, and then Boba is going to go and do what he's going to do in the second season. So, Laura, talk to me about this end sequence here with Fennec, and then also the stuff with Boba at the end, and then Cobb Vanth and Mando.
This is the brutal, relentless, like, Fennec that I was hoping that we would get more of throughout the entire show. I mean, just ruthless in this last scene that we get of her, which was perfect. I love that we end this journey kind of this way with her, because it was just really cool. But when we get to the part where they're actually walking through Mos Espa, there's a great, the score that's playing is so great, because it's kind of this flute Renaissance style of Boba's theme, and I just really like it. It was just so perfect. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. But this thing that you pointed out of Boba being like, we're not suited for this, I am so confused.
Yeah.
Because we spent all this time, we got this history and this journey with the Tuskens. We got him, not wanting to go back to the palace after Drash's suggestion of like, let's stay here and we need to be among our people. I'm not going to go hide in my, like, it just, we set so much of it up for them to now do what now they're going to leave and go do what? I don't understand.
Go after Mace Windu, according to Tamora Morrison. But yeah, I mean, Fennech Shand should have kicked him in the nuts in that moment and been like, you just talked me into being this. You taught me to walk away from all this kind of stuff. Now you're saying we're not sure we're supposed to be doing this? I'm saying that's
no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It's just bizarre. There are a couple little moments here right at the end though that I really like when they're all standing around and sort of like talking and Santo's eating the Melu run. I didn't notice it until the second time I watched it. There's a little rabbit droid that's standing right there too. Oh, yeah. I don't know why. There doesn't need to be. It doesn't make any sense that it's there. But I like that it's there. It's funny. It's fine. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to. It's Star Wars. Deal with it. But the very end of it, the camera pans up and we see, this shot transitions to like the atmosphere above Tatooine. And we see the twin suns and the N1 flying towards us. And I just thought it was the most perfect way to end any show, any season of Star Wars, because this is where our story began in 1977. So I thought that was a really perfect ending. The fact that Cobb Vanth doesn't have to wear the traditional back to diaper and in fact gets to wear a very sleek black turtleneck is just interesting and perfect, and I'm fine with it. It's just awesome.
Cobb Vanth, he's a daddy, all right. Shannon, thoughts on this end sequences here for this and the post-credit scene for this show?
Yeah, I wish we had gotten to know all of these guys better so their deaths would have been that much sweeter, especially the mayor. I mean, I wish we would have had an episode of him being just an obsequious shit. I mean, the moment that you see that cable, that wire come down and yank him up and you see his Athorian feet kind of dangling, like it makes it so much nicer when when you have more examples of how much this is deserved.
Yeah.
But at the end, I was also with the Pike leader. Like Boba's the one that should have gotten him. Like Fennec taking the rest of them out, fantastic. Yeah. I was confused by the Renaissance music. It sounded like they were playing a lute. And the fact that we ended with we ended with Mando and Grogu off to their next adventure makes it seem like it's a Mando story. It's the Book of Boba Fett. Like the last page should have been Boba Fett. And John, I fully agree with you about maybe we're not into this. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Like that's such a odd line to script, and one would assume that that's going to lead into the Book of Boba Fett season 2, but it just seems super super odd. Like why wouldn't you leave us with our protagonist? But Grogu up in the droid port, I mean, that was adorable. I mean, the incessant knocking, that's really funny. Yeah. So the way it ended, I don't creatively agree with, but it was nice.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, so the thing with the Fennec scene was great. I love Fennec Shand being Fennec Shand can Fennec Shand all she wants. It did make me think though, as all the memes said, in the first couple weeks we were all laughing how Fennec was like, "Hey, can I kill him? Can I kill him?" And Boba was like, "No, I'm gonna lead with respect. I'm gonna do this." And I'm like, well, if you had just let her do this, around chapter 2. Sanctuary would still be there, and Mos Espa would have avoided a lot of property damage. Like it was one of those things. Like all of Boba's let's do this a different way kind of amounted to Fennec Shand doing exactly what she clearly was capable of doing from the get-go, and they wouldn't have had any of this problem. So the whole scene was kind of like, this is awesome. Maybe Fennec was right. And then I agree with Shannon. In the whole everybody gets together and like, hey, look, let's all share melons. Look, we're a gang. Let's have fun. It's like, if we knew these characters better, it would be more fun. Yes, maybe we're not cut out for this. I think threw all of us for a loop. I think what they were going for is Boba going, maybe the reasons that I wanted to be the head of crime weren't right. I don't know what I kind of got what they were going for, but I was like, I don't really know where they're going to go with it. And also, I am kind of reaching a point where I'm like, why is Fennec following Boba?
Yeah.
She's right. Always. Like when we get to season 2 of Book of Boba Fett and he's decided to open like a burger joint on Krssantan and Fennec is the short order cook and she's like, I guess that's what I'm doing. Like it's just like where is this gonna go? Like I don't know. So I do think it's like, I am a little curious. I also agree with Shannon that ending Book of Boba Fett on Mando and Grogu, probably not the best choice, although that's a golden scene. It's a golden scene. Like, Din Djarin and Grogu together is A++++ material. Grogu doing his little tap, 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 tap was golden. And then we got RoboCop. And we'll see where that all goes. Like we'll see what happens with him, and what happens with RoboCop's adventures. Like Book of RoboCop is coming, and it'll be great.
I mean, we all saw him get shot in the shoulder.
In the shoulder, that's it.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He'll live.
Number 27 pickup. Number 5 on the deck. I get to see that with Fennech Shand.
Somebody in the chat already made the joke "burger fett," which I like.
Oh no! Somebody just made the joke: Boba burger with feta cheese.
Oh!
Feta cheese. Joey J.
There it is.
Bravo.
Well done, you guys. Wow.
Oh my gosh,
I love
that's
our
a solid. That's a solid joke.
I love our Geek Buddy fans. They're the best. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think ending with Mando just made no sense. But in that terms of, how can I say this? It made sense in the fact that that's going to be the next connective tissue here, because I don't think Kenobi is going to connect much into this, but it'll be the next connective tissue. So it makes sense. You're kind of getting people excited for season 3 of Mando. But this is the Book of Boba Fett. You got to end with your lead guy. So to me, there should have been something going back here, and ending with Cobb Vanth shows you that these 2 other people they felt were more charming or interesting or magnanimous than your lead guy. And that, I think that kind of sends the wrong message for me.
Mando season 2 ended with the post-credit scene of announcing Boba Fett. So I don't know.
I don't think.
That's fair.
I think a post-credit scene being on a different character or setting something up is kind of fair ground. Like,
okay.
I think kind of being like, I think that's okay. I think ending your final moments with what they know we all are more excited about is more of a
kind of undercuts. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, all right, fine. But I loved Fennec wiping people out. And you're right. This would have been a 1-episode show if they let Fennec do what she wanted to do from the beginning. We wouldn't even be going 7 episodes at all, because she would have handled business. But you're right, Mike. And this is the trope that bothers me, because once again, here we go again. Just like we get Aquaman, just like we got Harry Potter. Like, the girl is way more capable of doing the fucking job. The woman is way more capable. Why do we keep following the dopey male idiot? It just doesn't make sense to me on so many levels. It frustrates the shit out of me, and I'm seeing it in 2022. I'm still seeing this trope, and it makes no sense to me at all. I don't see how guys, and this was basically almost an all-male production team, I don't see how the guys don't see that it's so obviously a mistake, in my opinion.
Well, overall I agree with you. I think the difference is, like, in a lot of the other examples that you're talking about, both the male and the female have the same goal, and even though the guy is set up as the hero, the female is clearly more capable. So that's like Neo and Trinity or Harry and Hermione. The difference here, and I think it's a key difference, is that the situation that's set up is that Fennec is like, I want to do it this way, which is let's just go kill the fuck out of everybody. And Boba is like, no, I want to do it this different way. And they kind of set up this core conflict of Boba being like, it was in the original trailer, I'm going to rule by respect. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. The challenge is with what they executed, at no point did Boba's strategy pan out. If anything,
that's what I'm saying.
Boba made everything worse. But so in difference to like Harry and Hermione, where they were like, well, we both want to kill Voldemort, and even though Hermione is clearly the better witch and way better at spells, Harry gets to win the day. Right. Boba just kind of stumbled around and then wrote a Rancor. I mean, like, did some awesome moves. I did like seeing him fight, right. But it's like they never just really had that. Like, I think they never really knew what they had this idea that we've created Din Djarin as this new Mandalorian who is doing all of the awesome Boba Fett stuff that Boba Fett did back in the 80s. So he's our new bounty hunter, badass. He's going to go kill some people. That gives us room to do something new with Boba. And I actually like that as a concept. I just think they didn't really, it was a little jumbled. We're all sitting here at the end and we're kind of like, okay, what does Boba want? Right. And I don't think any of us can answer it. And that actually is what the problem is.
If that line could have worked if they had set up this whole season as Boba trying to figure out where he belongs now. But he was so adamant that he wanted to be a crime lord. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to set up. So to have that line at the end, it's a complete undercut of what we had accepted his sole purpose that he had said over and over again. There were no moments of reflection, no moments of, wow, should I be doing this? Why? What is it costing me? There was none of that. So when you get that line at the end, it feels like a fuck you to the audience. I know it's not the intention, but it feels like that.
And I know we talked about this on our text chain a little bit, but I think that you kind of set up in his vision in chapter 2 and overall, you set up sort of this core internal conflict with him, which is my dad was a bounty hunter. I followed in his footsteps and became a bounty hunter. I became one of the best bounty hunters. I killed the shit out of people. I now am feeling like I need to do something differently. And he spends most of his parts of the season trying to do something differently. And if that moment with him and Din Djarin had been more of like a low moment for him where he was like, I tried to do it differently and I feel like I fucked things up. And Din Djarin had been like, hey, just go be who you are. And he came out and fucking did more or less what he did, but even more so, like killed everybody, Boba Fetted the shit out of everything, fucking took it to Cad Bane. Then you get to that final scene and that could be I thought we were going to do things this way. But I am really good at what I did. I don't really know what's next. And Fennec could be like, well, let's find out together. And that would have made more sense.
Yeah, fair point. All right, let's power through these Streamlabs Super Chats, and then we'll wrap up by talking about feelings on the season overall here. Real quick, Cassie Dea says, oh, no, you already got that one. Ray Dominguez, the third, says, bad directors, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Okay. Francisco Lopez says, hey, guys, and Laura, the show is okay, but the end really kills the series. So after all this trouble and war, Boba having a second thought about ruling Tatooine. So what was the point of the show then? Right, we addressed that, Francisco. I hope you feel satisfied by our conversation on it. John Getz said, would it have been more impactful for Cad to have been hired by the Pykes to kill the Tusken? So when Boba kills him, it's full circle. Also, why did Cad come back after his forces were already dead? Anybody?
Why did Cad come back after the
Pykes were clearly wiped out?
I don't know. I felt like the battle was still raging at that point, but also go ahead, Mike.
No, I think, and again, I don't think this was executed as clearly, but I think Cad was like, I want to go toe to toe with Boba again.
Yeah,
like Boba's been out of the count for like a while. Like nobody knew where he was. I think Cad was like, I have a bone to pick with him, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to like show that I'm the better guy.
I couldn't get him to come out of his shell emotionally. Well, I got to know. I still got to know if I'm better than. That makes sense. Miriam says, don't hate me, but I still believe the Book of Boba Fett was a filler series between The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. I also believe Bane will show up in flashbacks during Kenobi series. Maybe?
Well, I mean, if he were to pop up in Kenobi, he would still be alive because Kenobi is going to take place pre episode 4. So that would actually make sense. I mean, I think that's sort of the solace for those of us that think that Cad Bane did die in this, is that plenty of Star Wars material is going to take place before the Book of Boba Fett. Mm-hmm. So Cad Bane's not necessarily gone, right? But for me, it was still a mistake to kill him.
Yeah. Reggie Reg says Boba should have just opened a back-to-tank spa with Fennec working the front desk. Whoa.
I mean, honestly,
maybe they will. They still could.
Honestly, like, you can make a lot of money with a back to spa.
There's still time.
There's still time. You're right, Laura. I know when Laura's done when she makes those cracks. I know it. A Better Day says, I was thinking it would have been cool to structure this episode like a Western version of Helm's Deep, with Boba the White arriving on the Rancor and an army of Tuskens at his back. Definitely would have been an epic battle. LOL. Yeah, we never bring the Tuskens back after they're wiped out. No way they killed all the Tuskens on the planet or that entire tribe. So just seemed like a wasted opportunity not to bring them back. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's surprising writing choices.
Yeah.
I won't say mistakes, but I'll say a surprising choice.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going here. Philly G says, this show turned Boba Fett from one of my favorite characters to one I no longer care about. I was rooting for Cad Bane to kill this moron that they turned Fett into. Only thing keeping me interested in the Kenobi show is Deborah Chow. I'm so tired of the desert. Laura, you came into Boba Fett not being a big fan of Boba Fett. The show kind of turned you around. Now, by the end, do you feel opposite of Philly G? Do you now like Boba Fett as a character?
You know, I am kind of on the other end of it, because I think I really did kind of come into this being like, oh God, this is going to be the show for all the Boba Fett fanboys, and I just this isn't the show that's being made for me, and I'm gonna have to sit and watch it. And I am coming out of it on the other end. Like, it did warm me a little bit to Boba, because I like that we've got this sort of we dove a little deeper into this character than we ever had, because before this we had 5 minutes of screen time in the original trilogy, and then we got a little bit more in the Clone Wars and we got in prequels, whatever. But there wasn't a whole lot more, I don't know, gravity added to it. And now I think that there is. I love his backstory with the Tusken Warriors. I just think that that was a really great component out of the show. I wish it would have played out in a different way, or at all. But I thought that it just added some depth to the character I didn't have before, and I appreciated that as somebody who came into it with not a lot of positive feelings towards Boba Fett at all.
Fair enough. All right. What about you guys? You guys agree with Philly G, or do you guys still hold out hope for Boba as a character after this?
I think that Boba is I don't mind where he is currently existing in the Star Wars universe, and I think he has potential. Like, I think Star Wars, and again, I talk about this all the time with like how Clone Wars really changed my opinions on a lot of characters. Post prequels, there were a lot of characters that I was like, you can keep them. I don't care. And then Clone Wars came along and took those characters and actually delved deeper into them and did stuff, and I really came to love them. So Boba, having made it out of the Sarlacc pit, had this little adventure, ridden a Rancor through Mos Espa, and chilling with Fennech Shand and Black Krssantan and the crew, there's a ton of potential there. That potential could be utilized and make me fall in love with him again, and that potential could be completely wasted, and it really just depends on what they do with him and where they go.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, Boba Fett's future appearances in the Star Wars universe are not relegated to the Book of Boba Fett season 2. I mean, he could pop up in Mandalorian season 3. He could pop up in the Ahsoka series. You can argue that Boba Fett is way more interesting when he's not the focus. So going forward, maybe that's the better way to use him. I mean, Boba Fett in the Mandalorian season 2, way cooler than some of the stuff we got, and that has less to do with who Boba Fett is as a character, as opposed to how the creators handled him. I mean, this could be an MCU situation where Hulk leading his own movie, not so great. Hulk as a member of an ensemble, way better.
I also see people in the chat pointing out, and I think this is accurate and worth mentioning, that listen, Return of the Jedi ruined Boba Fett long before anybody else got their hands on it.
Point. That's actually a fair point. Yeah.
Let's just be real about the fact that, like, Homeboy went down like one of those old Goofy cartoons in Return of the Jedi, and so anything we get post that is just gravy as far as I'm concerned.
James Robinson saying Boba fell into a Sarlacc pit, Three Stooges style. That was his legacy. So that's not wrong there. I also like James Robinson, who wants to start a back-to-tank cleaning business. That's smart.
Somebody's got to. Somebody got to do it.
You can't do spice no more, James. You might as well start a cleaning tank business. I am Two Fly Cam. Donated said, excellent review by you all. Thank you. Love hearing your Star Wars thoughts. That being said, what are you all most looking forward to in Obi-Wan? Cheers and keep up the great work. All right, real quick, whoever wants to answer, what are you looking forward to? Shannon, let's go with you. Obi-Wan, what are you looking forward to?
I mean, I feel like it's the unfulfilled promise of what Ewan McGregor could have done and didn't get to do in the prequels. I mean, everyone recognized Ewan McGregor as this fantastic actor that was not necessarily supported by some of the material. And so knowing that this is a guy who is the lead of his show, I mean, he is the focal point of this series. I mean, that seems very to be very exciting, fertile story ground.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. All right, anyone else? Or should we move on?
Laura?
I'm hoping that we get some sort of flashback with Qui-Gon Jinn, some sort of conversation, maybe even like Force Ghost Qui-Gon interacting with him. And I assume that's going to happen. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Mike?
I just hope we get some variety. Like, I would prefer to see maybe like a desert planet for a change. Just maybe like just to spice things up a little bit.
Yeah. Look, you're asking what I'm most looking forward to. It's Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. It is that. It is Anakin and Obi-Wan. Just having a fucking conversation about shit. Absolutely. And maybe even Ahsoka. I mean, if those three show up on screen together and have a conversation, sweet Mary Mother of God.
I mean, they're not going to get coffee, I don't think.
No, but that's true. That's true. That's
any sort of conversation
is
going to be lightsaber relevant.
Someone's getting a scone thrown at them. Genghis Khan said Cobb had to give back Boba's armor. In return, Boba just infuses armor into Cobb. Oh, that's a
good trade-off.
That's not bad. And three last ones here from Haskell 420 real quick. Hey, gang, well, not one of my predictions came true. No Luke, no Magnificent Seven moment, no Cad shooting Grogu, or him freezing a gun blast. Oh, well, sounded great. Hated the tactical side of this, even if all of them haven't been in actual war with their combined experience bounty hunting. They know to stay in the shadows to snipe enemies. If you're protecting the town, you move the battle away from the town. Great point, Haskell. You don't stay in a bombed-out building where if rockets or grenades get shot or thrown in, then it wipes your ass out. Move away from the people. Boba and Mando, I get running around the town trying not to get shot, but now every resident in their home is in danger. And I hope the Rancor didn't kill anyone as he destroyed ththose rooftops and buildings. Thanks. So excellent points you make there, Haskell. Not going to deny.
It's the Superman. It's the Superman 2 argument. When he takes off and everyone thinks that Superman has abandoned them, what he has done is taken the enemies out of range of the populace. Yeah,
it's even the Man of Steel argument. Hey, they destroyed all these buildings. People died, and so that's use both those Superman movies to make that argument for sure. So thank you, Haskell, very much, and thank you to everybody who sent in Streamlabs and super chats throughout this episode, and thank you to all the chat people, leaving the lively chat. Final thoughts here as we wrap up. Laura, I'll start with you. Final thoughts on this series of the Book of Boba Fett, this season 1. If there is a season 2, at least this season 1, what's your final thoughts as you walk away from this series?
Well, while I enjoyed having live action Star Wars back on my screen, and some of these episodes individually were really great and really landed. We did a lot of nitpicking in this review, but like individually, a lot of them I thought were great, and I enjoyed the finale. It was like an action-packed, fun Saturday morning cartoon. I really enjoyed it. We hit a lot of buttons in this, and it was a lot of fun. So overall, I think the finale probably worked better for me than maybe it did for any of you. Mm-hmm. Overall, as a series, this show just suffered from a lack of focus. And it's one thing to, call your show the Book of Boba Fett, and you insert interludes into a novel. That's the thing that happens. If you do that in a novel that has 40 chapters and you do an interlude every 10 chapters, that makes sense. When you're taking the show and making half of it an interlude, that it completely shifts the focus, and a lot of that just kind of falls away. Yeah. So that part of it didn't quite land for me. The structure could have been better. Individually, though, I thought there was a lot of promise there, and there were some individual really great episodes in this, particularly episode 2. We talked about how much we liked that one. Episode 6 was great as well, but again, part of the interlude chapters that had nothing to do with this. So structuring is where it failed the most for me. Individually, I thought a lot of it was great.
Great. Okay. Shannon, final thoughts on this whole season?
I mean, Laura really nailed those
Yeah.
thoughts. I mean, it was sort of some unfocused storytelling. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, nobody bats 1,000. I mean, the MCU is one of my most favorite things in cinema, and they also made Iron Man 2. So there are going to be some Iron Man 2. Really, you're going to defend Iron Man 2 right now?
My bird, please.
there are going to be some speed bumps. There's going to be a learning curve, and hopefully moving forward, the creative powers that be will take this as a lesson to be like, okay, we tried something different. It didn't necessarily land. Let's apply that to what we're making going forward. I mean, at the end of the day, like Star Wars, we've all seen some bad Star Wars movies, and we all keep coming back because of what those original films did to us way back when. And whether those original films were the original trilogy, if they were the prequel trilogy, if you were growing up around that time. So even though this show did not satisfy everything for me, there was still a lot of stuff that was fun. I mean, Laura put it perfectly. This is something that I watched in the mornings with I got a brand new cereal that's like a healthy cereal. This was like watching Saturday morning cartoons. So even though I didn't love it, it was still, it's a healthy cereal. I'm older.
I don't understand the point. Keep going with your point. Hurry up.
I'm getting older.
Let's get out of here. I know you're drunk, but we're in real time. We want to get out of here. Let's go.
Eating cereal, watching Star Wars in the morning. Mwah, great.
Fair enough.
I'll leave it there.
That's good. And one last super chat here from Brian Prowler. Shout out to Shannon and his great dad jokes. There you go.
Oh Lord.
Mike.
I love Shannon. I love Shannon after one beer being like, let me tell you what I love about Star Wars.
Okay, it's big. It's a big beer.
Lord.
I mean, this is a can just for scale reference.
Oh my God.
To call it one drink, how dare you?
Again, I think like we talked about all the things. I think overall though, the thing about this whole season, when you take it all as a whole, like we got out of the Star Wars TV stuff, we got some of the least good stuff that we've had so far, but we also got some of the best stuff. And not even the Mando stuff, like the Dark Saber stuff and the Luke and Ahsoka and Grogu stuff, but Cad Bane coming into the world, more Hutts, Black Krssantan, like bringing the Pykes and all of this, like the underworld stuff kind of into live action in a big way and making that a part of the universe. I mean, what Filoni and Favreau are doing, not perfectly all the time, which I think we've kind of covered in this territory, but what they're doing is taking a lot of the pieces that they've been using or that Filoni's been using in animation for years and shifting them out. They did it in Mandalorian with Bo-Katan and the backstory of Mandalorians, and so they're taking all this stuff, bringing it into live action, and for this 25-year period or so, or 20-year period that's existing between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, they're filling this with, we now have Pykes, Hutts, Black Krssantan, which means maybe Doc Afra's not far behind. We've got Thrawn out there somewhere. We've got Ahsoka and Sabine. We've got Ezra Bridger. We've got Grogu and Din Djarin going around. Din Djarin's got the Darksaber. Bo-Katan, like there's just all of these things that they have 20 years of story that they get to fill in before we even meet Rey or the First Order or anything. And so even though, and I include Boba and Fennec and wherever he goes. So even though it was clunky, even though it wasn't always perfect, they used these 7 episodes to move a bunch of pieces onto the board that I think is going to really reap rewards for us in the long run. So even though I have my several critiques, which we have talked about in this episode, it still makes me excited about where we're going.
Fair enough. I think for me, it's in 3 sections, right? The first 4 episodes, I actually really enjoy. I like what they were building up. I like what they were setting up. I like the interactions. Yes, could we have had more Fennec? Absolutely. But we also got Garza Fwip, which I really wanted to see more of and have her be a really strong part of the Star Wars universe. But everything they were setting up, I really enjoyed it. It took its time, its pace. It was laying the groundwork for everything. So I was in because I expected something because they had laid the groundwork to expect this kind of turn or moment where you got to see Boba do his thing. And 5 and 6 were fantastic episodes of Star Wars. And then we get to 7. And the only disappointing part of this whole season for me was episode 7, was the finale, unfortunately, because the setup that they had built through the first 4 episodes and a little bit in the 6th episode didn't 100% land for me. And that's what I'm disappointed about. That being said, I'd go back and watch this series from the beginning all over again in a heartbeat, because I really enjoyed getting to know a little bit more of Boba, getting that stuff fleshed out. And as Michael pointed out, all the great stuff that they've laid the groundwork and touched upon, we're going to enjoy the fruits of that down the road, hopefully, if it's done well in whatever series it pops up in. So in the end, this was still worth it. Was it a bit uneven? Yes, but in the end, it was still a fun amount of Star Wars, and it wasn't anywhere near terrible, in my opinion. And so I look forward to see what more we got going on. And someone countered Shannon's point by saying Jon Favreau did Iron Man 2 too, So yeah, kind of interesting.
That he did.
Kind of interesting to point that out for sure. One last one, I guess. Tariq Dingle says, I bumped on the structure from the start, and even though episodes 5 and 6 were the best quality, they did no favors for the cohesiveness on the show. Yeah, that seems to be
Very
the overall
right.
Point of view that we have here overall. All right, that's the thank you all so much for joining us here on our journey through the Book of Boba Fett, and thank you for joining us tonight. Especially thanks for all the stream live super chats again and the lively chat. We appreciate it madly. Thanks for all the likes. Hit a like on this video and all the comments you're going to leave, and a big thank you to Laura Kelly for joining us on this journey. Laura, honestly, 3 idiots talking, you level us up with class, so thank you very much for being a part of it. Please tell everyone where they can find you and everything you got going on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. I really love talking Star Wars with you guys because you're just fun. You can come find me on Twitter at @shutup_Laura, and the podcast that I host with my friend Alice is called Force Toast, a Star Wars happy hour, and you can find that at Force Toast Pod on Twitter. And John and I will be back hosting new episodes of The Jedi Way soon, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah, now that we're done with Boba, it clears the way for us to do that for sure. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
If you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at Geek_Buddies, on Instagram at _Geek_Buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. I don't feel like it's that bad. You guys are making me very self-conscious. If you'd like to feel Michael Vogel, it is at MK2, and if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says. Really? Was that bad?
If you misunderstood him, we'll just put the things back up there. All right, anyway, Mike, go ahead.
If you like the Geek Buddies, because we like you, and we want to hang out with you some more, here's some stuff that you could do for us. Hit the like button below, and subscribe to John's Outlaw Nation page, because it's a really good page. And if you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you give us some stars and some likes and some comments, because we go up in the rankings, you know what I mean? And if you are doing anything else, leave some comments below. What did you think of this show? You all are so pretty right now. And if you want to just retweet this video, post it on your socials and say, hey, the Geek Buddies are here for you. Guys, it's fine. It's a really big beer. It's a really big beer.
Oh, that's definitely about me. I was unclear until the very end.
Nailed it right at the end. And we want to give a big thank you to Carbon Health, who I should have mentioned at the beginning of the show. I apologize to Carbon Health and everybody involved there. Carbon Health powers and sponsors the Geek Buddies and the Outlaw Nation. Thank you so much for sponsoring us as we've done these reviews as well. For those of you who are out there, Carbon Health is an incredible healthcare provider. They believe in creating plans that are suited for you. They want to make healthcare accessible to everyone. And they've got 90 clinics in 14 states. They got virtual care in 24 states. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to go and visit them if you have anything going on with you. I'm sure they've got back the tanks you can use. Don't quote me on that you can use and get better. And sometimes, depending on where you live, you can make same-day appointments. And we know right now with healthcare, it is very difficult to get in and see your doctor that day or day of. So go to carbonhealth.com and go check out all the stuff that they have available for you to get checked out. Don't be cavalier with your health. Trust us, it is important to take care of it for the love of God. So thank you all again so much for joining us here. We appreciate, we love you, and we'll talk to you next time on another brand new episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.